Iranians critical of their government reacted to the deal with a sense of grim relief. In one voice note sent to NPR by a woman who asked to remain anonymous due to the risk of arrest, she said she supported the war at first because she thought it would bring regime change. But the people who pay the price of war are everyday people, she says. It's better that we just continue the current dog-like life we have. We don't need a constant danger of death on top of it as well. If the regime can't be defeated by war, then why should there be a war at all, she says. For NPR News, I'm Deri Bouskarin, Istanbul.
Before he left for France, President Trump hosted a UFC fight night at the White House last evening. NPR's Mara Eliason has more.
The president celebrated his 80th birthday with the entertainment he wanted, an unprecedented and violent mixed martial arts spectacle. Fighters were seen warming up barefoot in the ceremonial rooms at the White House. The fight was controversial. Trump's critics say instead of focusing on the UFC fight, a new White House ballroom, or a triumphal arch, Trump should be telling Americans how he plans to lower inflation, keep rural hospitals open, or make it easier to buy a home. But the White House says Trump, like all presidents, can do more than one thing at a time, and they point to Trump's announcement of a deal with Iran to end hostilities and the fact that right after the cage match, he flew to France for the G7 summit. Mara Eliason, NPR News.
The British government has announced it is banning social media for children under 16. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer also announced restrictions on gaming services and live streaming. NPR's Fatima Al-Kassab has more from London.
Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram and X are among the platforms that will be banned for children in the UK by early next year. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced the ban in a televised statement from 10 Downing Street.
Today is a big moment for our country. This is a big step. Real change for our children and our future.
He said this full ban was not a decision he had taken lightly, but that it was the right choice because, he said, social media is making children unhappy and unsafe. Fatima Al-Kassab, NPR News, London.
And you're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The MBTA has launched free Friday commuter rail service through August, giving out-of-town riders a chance to travel to Boston and beyond without paying a fare. The Worcester Guardian reports that the promotion began this month. It applies to all regular commuter rail service on Fridays in June, July, and August. The free rides include June 13th and July 3rd. But keep in mind that special event trains like those ones traveling to Foxborough for the World Cup and the Cape Flyer are excluded from this promotion. State officials say the promotion is intended to both thank existing riders and encourage more people to leave their cars at home during what's expected to be a busy summer for travel and tourism across the Bay State. Mass General Brigham tried to buy that unfinished Norwood Hospital last year, but local officials say the price was way too high. Boston Globe reports officials from MGB held talks with the officials from Medical Properties Trust, the current owner of Norwood Hospital, but the talks went nowhere because the price was ridiculously high. So says State Rep John Rogers, who represents Norwood. Medical Properties set the original price at $250 million, and when Mass General Brigham said the price was too high, Medical Properties came back with a second number of $375 million, a 50% markup, and that's when the talks broke down. A lot of World Cup action today. Red Sox are off, and we are in for a beautiful day. Sunny and low 80s. It's 73 in Boston right now, 69 in Springfield. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Schwab, offering investors choices from self-directed investing to full-service wealth management all in one place. Committed to helping investors in any life stage with their investing goals. More at schwab.com.
You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, they're off today. They will be back, though, tomorrow at the BPL. She is NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell, and I am NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. Hello, Sue.
Good day, Trenny. How are you, darling?
I'm well.
Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello. We just heard the British, the newscast.
Yes, now I just want to do everything in a British accent or a Scottish accent, which we'll get to.
YouTube, stop. Okay. Anyway, we're going to bring you into the conversation in just a little bit this Monday morning at 877-301-8970. So you can call or text if you want to get in line now. The question's going to be from UFC at the White House, the Kennedy Center renaming, unnaming, renaming again, Trump's birthday, the World Cup, the Iran deal. What's been getting your attention these days? There's a lot fighting for it. But we're going to start with the latest on that so-called end of the war, so-called deal with Iran announced by Donald Trump last night. Joining us now on Zoom is Daniel Drezner, professor of international politics and academic dean at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. He's going to discuss what we actually know and what we don't know about the so-called agreement. Hello, Daniel Drezner. Good to see you again. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while, Sue. I really wanted to start with a Scottish accent, but I didn't think I could pull it off.
We're all going to be
It's
Scottish.
really good to see you, Sue. No, sorry,
That's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good, Dad. All right.
Funny good day to you both.
We fought to get rid of all of this influence, and now we're just welcoming it all back.
I can't get enough of Outlander. I can't lie. Okay, we do have actual real world topics to talk to you about, though. And when I heard the news about the, and I'm using air quotations here, the agreement, the ceasefire, that's what I thought. I thought, okay, here we go again. It's going to be signed maybe on Friday. Like, why should we think that this is any different than all the other times that something has come up and it's not gone all the way through?
That is a fair question to ask. I believe Donald Trump has declared that there was a ceasefire like 40 times, or like imminently, like there was going to be a deal at 40 different junctures since the start of this war. The difference this time is that the Iranians are also saying that a deal is going to be signed on Friday. So the fact that you're getting confirmation from both sides, not to mention the Pakistani and Qatari interlocutors, suggests that there is something that is going to be agreed to. Now, that said, I would put a 5 to 10% chance that nothing is signed on Friday. Because among other things, the most important thing to realize is that Israel is not a party to any of this. And one of the clear aspects of the ceasefire is that Iran has made it clear that for there to be a ceasefire, it's not just including the Strait of Hormuz, it also has to include Israel and Lebanon. And so as a result, that's one of those things where we honestly don't know if Israel is going to be incentivized to actually comply with whatever the Trump administration wants them to do.
So, Daniel, it's probably a safer route to describe this as a letter of agreement or a letter of inquiry almost, like we have, agreed that we need an agreement and we've agreed that we need a ceasefire, but the devil, of course, is going to be in the details. And, Iran, for all of its challenges, and I don't mean to sound sympathetic, but I mean, they have a small army. The Navy has been pretty much wiped out. They have really a history of, in my lifetime at least, being hard to negotiate with and holding to the bitter end. So
they are fantastically difficult to negotiate with, and they are really good at delaying. And this is one of the things that has clearly frustrated the Trump administration, except weirdly, the Trump administration gave them a really good excuse for delaying, which is, look, we need to consult with our supreme leader and you keep killing our leadership. So it's going to take some time for this. So you're absolutely right. I mean, it's worth remembering the JCPOA, which Trump has said is a horrible deal and presumably he's going to get a better deal.
And that was Obama's deal,
that was Obama's deal. That took years to negotiate. The idea that you're going to be able to negotiate something within 60 days, which is what this is. I mean, basically, the MOU that's being signed on Friday just says we're opening up the strait. Both blockades, the Iranian and the U.S. one, will be lifted, and there'll be no further hostilities. And we will then talk about the nuclear material and the lifting of sanctions. The idea that you're going to get an agreement on that fully within 60 days strikes me as fanciful. And so it then becomes what happens then. And the Trump administration, Trump, I think, told the New York Times, if that happens, we'll go right back to war. It won't be a real problem. He doesn't want to do that. And I think the real problem is that everyone knows he doesn't want to do that. And that's one of the things that gives the Iranians significant leverage going forward.
Every time that President Trump says that there's a ceasefire, they've come to an agreement, and now the Strait of Hormuz is going to open and everything's going to be okay. And we did see crude oil prices go down today, but realistically, for the average American, even if this does get signed on Friday, how long will it take for all of the penalties, for lack of a better word, that the United States has suffered under this, for that to go away and things to get back to somewhat normal?
It'll take a little while. And it's also worth noting that in some ways, one of the problems here is that while gas prices might start to go down, because gas prices do tend to follow oil prices relatively shortly, and the fact that it's dropped means you're going to see a drop in gas prices. But that said, we're in summer, so normally that's when demand starts to surge for these things. And the real concern I have is that it's not just that oil was embargoed as a result of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. There's a whole variety of other products, in particular fertilizer, urea, naphtha, a whole bunch of things that the Gulf producers are significant producers for around the rest of the world. And the thing we need to see is how does that trickle down to other prices, whether it is packaging or food or what have you. I think there are ways in which even if this ceasefire holds, you're going to see prices across other commodities go up for a time, because it's going to take months for this sort of bottleneck to unwind, and that's something we just have to deal with. And that's why I think the thing about Donald Trump is he always likes quick victories, and he'll always claim we've done this, it's great. The problem is that the anger about this, in terms of the price being paid by American consumers having to pay for higher gas and pay for higher food prices and what have you, that's going to persist for a couple months.
All right, Daniel Drezner, thanks so much for jumping on with us and helping us understand this letter of agreement. That's what I'm going to call it.
Letter of intent.
Letter of intent.
Letter of intent.
Daniel, agree to agree. Yes.
Yeah, agree to agree.
Thank you. We have been speaking with Daniel Drezner, Distinguished Professor of International Politics and Academic Dean at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. You can find his Substack at danieldrezner.substack.com. Once again, thanks, Dan.
All right.
Thanks.
So, of course, let's bring some folks into the conversation now. It's everybody's turn at home. The number is 877-301-8970 for you to call or text. Now, look, there's plenty of action out there vying for your attention. You got the World Cup. You got Trump's UFC fight last night at the White House. The ever-evolving situation in Iran that we have to pay close attention to. So we're wondering, what is getting your attention this year, right now, these days, and how are you willing to pay and watch for the things you want to? For example, Paramount Plus had the fights. Fox 1 had the World Cup in English, and those with Peacock can watch in Spanish, and those who can't really afford anything can watch essentially a bootleg stream of the World Cup on Tubi, if you're okay with not actually seeing the long stretches of the game and instead are just watching fan or coach cans. So we want to hear from you, 877-301-8970. The attention economy and you, how are you keeping up with it? Call or text, please. How are you keeping up with it, Johnny?
Okay, so I do subscribe to many streaming services, but one that I do not is Paramount. And so my producer on our Bella Early Edition, which I host, which is my real job, he last night was like, look, will you watch this UFC fight now? They're saying there could be thunder and lightning. And I was like, well, maybe somebody will get struck by lightning and that'll make it worth my while. And then I went to see where I could watch it. And I was like, Paramount. I'm like, I'm not paying for Paramount. No way.
Right.
No way am I supporting Bari Weiss and everybody else over at CBS, which is completely devolved into what used to be a legacy journalism program and now is just a pawn in Donald Trump's little game. I won't do it. But everything else,
you're in.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. We're actually watching, full disclosure, we're part of the Telemundo team here.
Yes, we are.
We are employed of the same people. We're watching the World Cup in Spanish on Telemundo.
Why are you, okay, can I ask you?
On Peacock.
Why you're watching it on Peacock and Telemundo and not, because, okay, also full disclosure, Sue and I both work for NBC, which is Comcast Core, which means we get a very deeply discounted cable. So I still am a cable person because I don't have to pay much for my cable and internet.
Right. Well, we enjoy the Spanish language version of it. Because
even though you don't have it. Do you speak any Spanish?
Because I sit in the Telemundo row and have taken 5 years of Spanish, I understand enough. So that I can, and Ruby, my daughter, understands enough that we know and just the excitement of the game is one thing. But I will tell you what I'm paying attention to as a political commentator. Like when it comes to the UFC fight on the White House, Thomas Jefferson had cockfights, right? There's been boxing. Roosevelt had boxing, I believe. There's been all sorts of things that have happened on the White House lawn. I don't care about that. What I care about is that the Trump organization, run by Eric and Don Jr., were selling medallions that were not by the U.S. Mint. These are private medallions for up to $12,000 that President Trump designed, and we don't know where that money is going.
Oh, we know, Sue.
Well, I just think that we can pay attention to the spectacle, or we could just dig a little deeper and say, okay, where's the revenue here? So that's what I'm paying attention to. So we've got an anonymous texter who's texted us and said, the Scots in Boston got my attention this weekend, so much so that I'll be heading to Dan Fest.
Well, I think it's Fan Fest.
Fan Fest,
just
right?
A typo.
Thank you. On Friday for the Scotland-Morrison match. I got to tell you, I ran into one Scot in my neighborhood the other Sunday morning. It was a beautiful Sunday morning, you might recall, 70 degrees, no humidity, walking my dog Maud. He stopped to ask if he could pet my dog. He was obviously Scottish, and he said, how is she tolerating this heat with a black fur coat? I'm like, oh, you must be Scottish.
You're like, oh, you must not have been here for the past 3 days when it was 90 and humid.
All right, another anonymous texter. There is no deal. Trump just wants to look like a big boy for his birthday, even with his... Okay, I'm not going to say that. I got an electric car over the weekend. Good luck, Trump, and your oil baron friends. Yeah, I'm not so sure there's a deal, but we have to pay attention to the deals. We have to keep paying attention to them. So that's what's going on. All right. Shall we go to Jim in Hingham? Jim, welcome to Boston Public Radio with Trenny, Casey, and me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
What are you paying attention
to? I just
to?
have to agree with the last comment that Trump is the master of performance art, and the timing of the so-called peace agreement just happened to coincide with his big, beautiful birthday, which to me is just an extension of performance art. And timing is everything for him. Appearance is everything. Fact and reality are completely separated from his performance. And I have no faith in anything that takes place, just happens to take place on his birthday.
Well, it's fascinating to me, Jim, is like, in most sales, I did sales for a little bit, done marketing for a little bit, you're supposed to underpromise and overdeliver, right? That's supposed to be the key to building trust with your consumer, with your audience. Underpromise, overdeliver, and Trump's, who's very successful. I don't ever want to take away from the fact that this human being is incredibly successful, and he has done it by overpromising and underdelivering. And as Daniel Drezner pointed out, we have had almost once a week an announcement of a peace deal, and we still don't have a peace deal. What's the secret to Donald Trump's success on this, Jim, do you think?
I don't think he has an exit strategy. I just think that everything he's doing now is to buoy the markets, to buoy the economy, because I think economically we are headed to an all-out disaster. And he's just trying to buy as much time as he can and hope some miracle falls from the sky. I just think that this time around he has boxed himself into like a terrible predicament.
All right, Jim, thanks for calling from Hingham. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Yeah, it's so much to pay attention to.
I mean, you asked Jim the question of how do you think he succeeded at this?
Yeah.
I think that people are so disillusioned or frustrated with the status quo that he, as a master manipulator and a showman, can read the room and understood that he had an opportunity to grab everyone's attention. And even because he's overpromised and underdelivered you could argue his entire career, he has fleeced people into making himself very, very wealthy while hurting other people economically. And people, I think most voters, most people you gravitate towards charisma. You gravitate towards someone who can catch your attention on television, not necessarily what they can or cannot do for you. And he has managed to make his rich friends richer while making the rest of the country poorer, but they don't care because they somehow identify with this guy and they buy his lies. Like, it really is. It's like almost, I don't know how many cult things you watch on TV, but it's like I watch a lot of like cult documentaries. Yeah. It's that these types of showmen bring you in, and then spit you out.
We're taking your calls and texts about the economy, the attention economy, and you can write us at BPR. We're getting a lot of mentions about the Epstein file, about how the Epstein files are continuing to be disregarded when all of this hubbub is happening. It's interesting that this is happening at a time when Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, their new book is about to come out about being in the Situation Room. They had apparently being
some pretty
reported by Axios,
some leaks.
Somebody leaked them recordings that it seemed the only person in the room who wanted the Epstein files released was J.D. Vance. To
which I said, boy, wouldn't that be politically advantageous for J.D. Vance?
So I just want to make sure we're mentioning that the Epstein files still haven't been fully released. As we're talking
a couple other
about
texts, by the way, as we get an anonymous texter talking about streaming. As of this morning, Fox is planning to buy Roku. It's just all going to be bundled together. Another anonymous texter, I'm assuming it's a family member or maybe spouse of Sue or I, Dream Team again. A lot of exclamation points.
That's
us
for
the Dream Team.
I think so. We say it. We walk around the office
Zoe,
and say it.
who works in the back with us, one of our BPR staffers, so she's watching the World Cup on Telemundo because she won't pay for Fox One, but also because in-game broadcasters are great. Curaçao's first World Cup goal ever against Germany. My guy was still saying goal for a solid 5 minutes.
You go, Zoe. We're taking your calls and texts at 877-301-8970. Let's go to Kathy in Waltham. Hey, Kathy, who is getting your very valuable attention right now? I'm sorry, Sarah. Sarah?
Hi there.
I'm sorry, I went to Sarah.
Ladies?
Thank you. Yes.
That's okay.
They changed the interface with colors, and it's all very confusing to me because no one
That's
told me. But
quite
hi,
all
Sarah.
right.
Welcome.
Hi, good morning. You know, I am ashamed to admit this, but I did tune in to the UFC event last night.
So are you a fan of UFC fighting?
I am a fan of the UFC. Unfortunately,
That's
I'm not
okay.
a fan of what's going on the lawn. But, you know, I wanted to tune in. I was quite curious about the thunder and lightning. I said, all right, well, you know what? This seems like a regular old circus act, so let's check it out.
So what was it like?
I do want to take a little bit of it was interesting. You know, it was definitely a UFC fight. I didn't love to hear some of the commentary. There was some commentary from one of the fighters about, you know, the long-standing, you know, rumor about Michelle Obama being the man.
Because it's always a good point. Yeah, a good point to insult someone, you know, when you're celebrating someone's birthday. If you just kind of take back, it's such a crass
he was celebrating a win. It should have been about his win and about his victory, and instead he decided to, you know, take a punch.
That was Josh Hockett, right? Josh Hockett, it was? Yeah. Just so everyone knows his name.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name, and I wasn't even going to bother remembering his name. I will take a little bit of a positive spin while I'm on the phone with you ladies. I will say that a lot of folks were really concerned about, you know, the FIFA World Cup being here in the United States, but it has been the most beautiful display of the melting pot that is the United States. I have seen so much content on the internet about, you know, Japanese fans coming to Texas and being amazed. They're like, there's food at the table ready for us, chips and salsa, for us to eat and enjoy before our meal even gets here. I'm so full by the time my food gets here. And it's just so funny and awesome to see, like, true camaraderie and true community, you know, which is what getting together and enjoying our favorite sports is all about. So as much as there's a lot of negativity, and there was certainly a lot of negativity on the stage last night, or in the octagon, if you will, it seems like there's a lot of positivity in the FIFA world. So I'm going to continue to enjoy that content and enjoy what a beautiful display it's been. I saw across the street, someone had Scotsman up at 6 a.m. Playing the bagpipes across the street, and they said, well, I guess we're having beers at 6:30, you know, and I think that's lovely. You know, we're here for something that only happens every 4 years. And North America is lucky enough to get to host it this year. So as much as things are crazy here in the United States, it's nice to see that there is a lot of camaraderie and a lot of folks coming together for some beautiful melding of cultures.
Yeah, that's great, Kathy. We're going to talk with Shirley Leung and Corby Kummer about some of the experiences, World Cup with Boston and America, North America. I also love that it's North America to remind people that Canada, Mexico, and
also
the United
participating.
States, all America, as our friend Bad Bunny pointed out to us. Okay, anonymous texter said, I'm still paying attention to what is happening to immigrants, and I can't figure out why so few people are. Our neighbors are still being taken from courthouses and other places for minor offenses, and detention centers are still being built. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is that things become normalized, you know, that it's not news anymore. Remember when the first year of the Trump administration, every time there was an ICE action, there was news about it. There isn't anymore because it's become normalized.
Well, and I talked about Trump being a showman. He realized that show brought him really bipartisan disappointment. I think it made him look bad, even in the eyes of many Republicans who said, I didn't vote for my neighbors to be taken from our communities. And so now, rather than pulling people off the streets in broad daylight and making a big show of it, they've just gone to more quiet ways, places where there aren't cameras and cell phones and where things are more moderated. And to me, that's this anonymous texter makes a good point, because you do not see anymore the outrage, the protests in the streets, and people standing up for their friends and neighbors who are still in trouble.
Okay, let's go to Kathy in Braintree. Kathy, welcome to Boston Public Radio. What's got your attention?
So I'm calling regarding the potential for a signature this Friday with Iran. And what I want to say is congratulations to former President Barack Obama, because once this signature, or once they start, if they start a deal, it will hopefully start to bring back experience and expertise as necessary components of political discourse.
Kathy, we're gonna have to leave it there, but we'll pass your comments along to Barack Obama, and we appreciate your thoughts on this. Thanks so much for calling in.
All right, Kathy, thanks so much. We are out of time on this topic. We thank you for your calls and texts. We'll get back to you at the end of the show for another talker. But coming up after this quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. I'm Trenny Casey. She's Sue O'Connell. We are in for Jim and Marjorie. You are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. You can also stream us at youtube.com/GBH News.
This year, GBH News is bringing together the people, places, and pivotal moments that took Massachusetts from colony to Commonwealth.
We all really think it's important to get the history out there.
There's a little bit of a feeling of being plunged back into history because you're right here where it really happened.
Discover our series From Colony to Commonwealth at gbh.org/America250.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Dean and Hamilton with Compass Real Estate, representing buyers and sellers in Cohasset. Sponsor of the South Shore Art Center's 71st Annual Festival on Cohasset Common, June 19th through 21st. More at deanandhamilton.com.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, as you can tell, are off today. They'll be back at the BPL tomorrow. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell, and she is NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. We're now joined on the Zoom machine by World Cup cheerleader-in-chief Shirley Leung. She, of course, is the business columnist at the Boston Globe, host of Say More, the podcast, and co-author with John Chesto of the always delivered right to your inbox Power Play newsletter. Hello, Shirley.
Hi, Sue. Hi, Trenny. Ooh, I've never been on with both of you
it's very
together
exciting.
as co-hosts.
It's very exciting.
It's the new thing.
It's like NBC takeover, right?
Yep.
Us and our almost free cable are just taking over the airwaves. Shirley, we'll get to the fun of the World Cup and the Scots in just a second. But you and Jim Braude did a sit down with Rachel Rollins. I'm just curious what Sue and I were talking about this before the show, and I asked her, I said, why run again? Like, did you kind of get that answer from her as to why she wanted to get into sort of a politically volatile space where she may be taken to task again on some things?
I mean, she felt the need to serve again. You know, her time as U.S. attorney was cut short. And so, of course, you know, a lot of it had to do with 2 federal ethics probes. And she's resigned I guess 2023, is that 3 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but she felt the need to come back and run again for her old office as Suffolk DA. She says that supporters reached out to her and asked her to run again. And so she collected enough signatures to get on the ballot for this September primary.
I want to disclose she's my neighbor, so I do run into Rachel Rollins from time to time.
At the old Dunks.
At the old Dunks. And I want to play a clip from that interview because folks will always say, well, you know, what is she doing to make up for her behavior? Has she taken accountability? Has she apologized? So here's a clip from former DA Rachel Rollins, the interview that she did with Shirley and Jim last week.
I will concede it is messy. I am embarrassed. I am shameful. I feel deep remorse for some of the behaviors I engaged in. But I promise you, I had emails from DOJ saying, you can do it, just don't do these 3 things. And why I met with people 8 times for 30 hours is because I really believed I hadn't made a mistake. Clearly, the OIG disagreed, and I do not challenge that at all.
So, Shirley, I've talked to a number of people who I would classify as Rachel Rollins' peers. Right? People of color, people who are in jobs that take a lot of scrutiny. And not one of them said to me that they would have done the things that she did, even with permission. And some of them are innocuous for regular people, you know, going to a fundraiser that
for Joe Biden, right?
Yeah, for Joe Biden that Jill Biden was at. How does she position herself or describe this when we have someone like Donald Trump and the Trump company selling medallions for up to $12,000, and we don't know where that money goes for, yet she's coming in saying, you know, I made these low-level mistakes, but I thought they were okay. I'm sorry, I'm not going to challenge it. Does it settle it for voters and the discussion?
Well, that's the big question, you know. I mean, I think even in our interview, she talked about what's happening in Maine, right? With Graham Plattner, right?
Yep.
He's running, and he's very controversial. Oysterman running. It's come out. He's, he has a Nazi tattoo that he covered up and denied that he knew it had anything to do with Nazism. He also, since in recent weeks, there are women who've come forward, old girlfriends, who said that he mistreats women. Yet he is the Democratic nominee for Senate in Maine, and so she says, listen, it's a different political time now. You can do things. Maybe a few years ago, you would do these sort of things, and voters would not forgive you. But she feels like there's an opening for a candidate like her, that voters will give her a second chance.
So obviously I'm a big fan of primaries. I love it when there are primaries, especially when there are incumbents. And DA Kevin Hayden is not without his own number of controversies, including the race against Arroyo, then City Councilor Arroyo, where information about his sealed teen records were released, and Hayden, of course, has had some ethical challenges as well. How will a race between someone like Rachel Rollins and Kevin Hayden, how is that discussion going to build confidence and trust in our district attorneys, especially? We're not even going to get into Norfolk County and what's happening over there. You know, these folks that are charged with representing the people, and what do you think the fallout might be from this kind of primary?
Well, they're going to be slugging it out, and they already are, right? In the interview with Rachel Rollins, she brings up this ethics violation, and she said there are 3 candidates running for Suffolk DA.
Yeah, Linda
There's also
Champion.
Linda Champion as well, and only one person has paid a fine for ethics violation, and that's Kevin Hayden. And so Hayden will go after her for Rollins, ethics transgressions, ethical violations, or by the Justice Department, and then she's going to go after him. Meanwhile, I think Linda Champion thinks there's an opening for her. She's the only candidate with a clean slate. Now, she also ran in 2018 when Rachel Rollins first ran in 2018. So she's a second-time candidate now, and so we'll see what happens. I mean, I think there's still a lot. As you know, it's really hard to unseat an incumbent, and so I think there'll be a lot of momentum. There'll be a lot of the establishment behind Hayden right now.
Do you think she can win, Shirley?
I don't know. I can't. I hesitate to make predictions. I mean, the electorate is angry. They're unsettled. They want change. I think if you are with Rachel Rollins, if you are her core base, you're probably still with her.
Yep. All right.
Let's have some fun.
Let's go have some fun now. Now, Shirley, the World Cup is not the Olympics. Okay, it's a very different beast. Just for our listeners, let's just recap. How are you feeling about the effort to bring the Olympics to Boston last round? Where were you on this?
I was a cheerleader. I was like, let's give it a try. Let's keep an open mind. But that didn't last very long. I think we got the bid. We got the bid in January 2015 to be the American representative, and by I think July, then Mayor Walsh had already pulled the bid because there was growing opposition to it. People thought it would. A lot of people didn't want to throw a party for international visitors. We'd spend all this money, and what's the payoff?
Every time we drive by Dorchester Bay, my daughter and I go, look, there was a wonderful description of Dorchester Bay in our pitch. So I always go, look, that's where the Olympics could have been, in beautiful, glistening Dorchester Bay. So now here we are with the World Cup. How are you feeling now? Do you feel like this is perfect?
Well, now I feel that that it's perfect, because if in the run up, right, in the last year, there's been concerns about raising enough money, to have a world to be a proper World Cup host, and there was a lot of fighting over security costs with the town of Foxborough. So we did not look good on the world stage, and I wrote a column saying, listen, the World Cup is here. The first game was Saturday. I mean, I wrote this a few days ago, and just as many Scottish fans were arriving to town for the Haiti-Scotland game. And I think once the fans got here, and once we saw the joy of the Scottish fans, I mean, it's been 28 years since Scotland's been in a World Cup, and I think we felt their it was infectious, their enthusiasm for the World Cup. And I think Bostonians are getting into it right now.
Well, speaking of those Scotland fans, here is a clip from Reuters of Scotland's Tartan Army, that's what they call their traveling fan group, marching through Boston, heading to Fenway Park a day after. So this was yesterday, watching their team win their first match at a World Cup since 1990 with that 1-0 win over Haiti. Okay, so Shirley, last week your colleague at the Boston Globe, Dan Shaughnessy, wrote a column that I read, and it was typical Shaughnessy, right? The World Cup is coming and no one cares. I actually feel like now people do care. Maybe there wasn't a lot of excitement into the lead up, but I feel a different energy in the city. I think the Scots have had a lot to do with it. Do you feel like people are embracing, for once, the curmudgeon-y Boston folks are embracing this event?
I do. I feel that the city's electric. It's buzzing. And the one thing I failed to do in my column, I failed to call out Dan Shaughnessy. I failed to say, you are wrong, Dan, again. And so, but yeah, you can feel. I mean, it's early days, right? We shouldn't celebrate too early. But right now, there's and everything is, people were able to get on the commuter rail, the $80 commuter rail to Foxborough. They were able to get there and come back. It was a little crowded getting on the trains. Maybe not all the trains had air conditioning, but everybody arrived safely there, came home safely, not a lot of incidents. I mean, we still have till July 9th? Is it 3 more weeks?
3 more weeks.
We still have 6 more games, 3 more weeks, but so far so good. And I think we're really lucky that the Scottish fans were here because they're all in their kilts, and so we
easily
can see
recognizable.
them on the street. Yeah, they're recognizable.
The bagpipes help.
With bagpipes, I wonder, how did they bring them? I mean, I guess you have to check your bagpipes, or do they rent the bagpipes here?
They're like golf clubs.
I guess so.
Yeah, they probably are like golf clubs. You probably put them in a hard case and have to check them. You probably don't fit in the overhead compartment. I do wonder, because I was with you when there was a chance. I love the Olympics, so when I heard that Boston was bidding for it, I desperately wanted them to bid and I wanted them to win it. I don't know that we'll ever get something on that scale, but do you think that if this is a success, that maybe Boston isn't so hesitant to maybe there's an F1 race that comes here someday, or other big, maybe we do move to the top of the list for the DNC because people see that this is a great place that can handle big events?
Right. No, absolutely. That was the whole goal, one of the big goals of having World Cup here. I mean, yes, Robert Kraft wanted to energize Americans about soccer, but also for Boston and for Meet Boston, for the tourism groups and leaders here, it was to show the rest of the country that we can host these big sporting events. Think about the NBA draft, right? Or the NFL draft, or NBA's
All-Star game.
All-Star games, right? And so, I mean, we have hosted the DNC, but it's been a long time. In 2004 was the last time, but we have not done. I mean, of course, we can't do the Super Bowl because we're a cold weather city, right? And so, but some of these bigger events, I mean, it would be great to have, because you see the NBA draft or the football draft. I mean, they're huge now, right? I mean, they attract thousands of people, lots of economic development. So that is the hope, and so far so good. I think people are having a good time in Boston.
Shirley, I want to ask about what's left over for Boston. I keep quoting Mayor Menino from the 1998 or something, when we were trying to get the trains to operate at night, and he was on BBN saying nothing good happens after 1 a.m. You should be in bed. That was Mayor the late Tom Menino's viewpoint on life. How far we have come. We've got some liquor licenses that are, we've got some late serving, we've got some free tea, we've got something that was shocking to me, people who I have known who like to sit at home alone and watch sporting events. We're like, where can I go watch a sporting event? Can I go to the Fan Fest? How early do I have to get into a pub to watch? Do you think when the World Cup moves on, we're going to have a better Boston with a more, world-class city status that we keep saying that we are, but whenever people come, they're like, why can't I carry my cup down Boylston Street? I mean, are we going to be for the better?
Well, yeah, that is one hope of the legacy of the World Cup, that we have these policies in place that allow last call to extend to 3 a.m., these social consumption zones where you can walk around with a glass of wine. We don't have these open container laws that apply. And the hope is that they do someday become permanent. We maybe the resistance, now we've tried it. The world did not fall apart. We did not, that life goes on, when last call is a little later. And I think now there's, momentum for potential talking about happy hour in a serious way. Should we do that? And the reason why, whether it's Mayor Wu or Governor Healy, why are they talking about this is because Boston needs to kind of shed our fuddy-duddy reputation. If we want to attract kind of young talent, we want kids, the 20-year-olds who go to school here, Harvard, MIT, and BU, if we want them to stay here, right, they need to think of Boston as a cool, young city for them as well.
I do love that I would do. What happened to the nighttime czar? Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Corinne Reynolds, she's around. I'm hoping to tag along with her. I mean, this is her time.
That's what I was saying. Like, this is her time to shine, right?
Yeah. Yes. She can check out all her policies in play. With late. I mean, think about the tea. The tea was running till I think 2:30 in the morning overnight. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the tea usually shuts down by 12:30, 1 o'clock. So it is possible that you can have tea service after 2:30 in the morning. The trains actually run.
Turns out we can do things like other big cities here. If we just have the willpower to do it. By the way, Melissa Lutke, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her or not. She's a wonderful woman in sports. She texts, I was at Fenway Park last night, and it's rarely felt so alive this season with the Scots bursting into song. Sox lost, Scots won, which is kind of typical these days.
All right,
see, more of this. Boston, more of this. Shirley is right. We have been speaking with Shirley Leung, business columnist at the Boston Globe, host of the Say More podcast, co-author with John Chesto of the always delivered to your inbox Power Play newsletter. Shirley, thank you. Enjoy your tag-alongs. I expect you to report back about what it's like to stay out till 3 a.m. Coming up after this quick break, Dr. Kate Ackerman on how a new Boston-based institute that aims to close the gap on female health research. I'm Trenny Casey. She is Sue O'Connell. We're in for Jim and Marjorie today. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, as America prepares to mark 250 years, one of the country's most prominent voices on race and democracy says the celebration comes with a reckoning. In America, USA, Princeton professor and New York Times bestselling author Eddie S. Glaude Jr. looks at how the nation has used its landmark anniversaries to defend a story of freedom while leaving out the people and histories that challenge it. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Museum of Science. From live science demonstrations to hands-on exhibits, families can explore the wonders of Earth's evolution and the frontiers of space this summer. Learn more at mos.org. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, or Jim, we should make a little J-Lo kind of thing for them, I guess. They're off today. They're going to be back at the BPL tomorrow. I'm NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell, and she is NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. And now, just for Trenny, more sports talk. Sports health research is obviously key for professional and recreational athletes, too, who are looking to improve their performances and take care of their bodies. But shockingly, not really, about 6% of those studies, only 6%, are exclusively focused on women. In fact, most sports research only looks at male athletes or studies male rats. And that's a problem because all sorts of things from pregnancy, menopause, and sex-specific physiology create unique conditions for female athletes.
Our sports systems, our medical systems, our cultures are not built for girls and women. We don't have a one-stop shop, a physical facility to get all this work done.
That was sports medicine physician Dr. Kate Ackerman in a 2023 TEDx talk. Now she leads a new institute based in Boston that's trying to close the gap, bringing together clinicians and researchers to advance the understanding of female athletes. And Dr. Kate Ackerman is the co-founder and director of the Women's Health, Sports, and Performance Institute and an associate professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. She also founded and formally directed the Female Athlete Program at Boston Children's Hospital. You can go to WHS Spin how do you say it, doctor?
WHSP Institute.
There you go. I thought maybe there was an acronym I was missing there.
WISP.
For more
We call it
info,
WISP.
there you go. Dr. Ackerman, welcome so much. Welcome to BPR. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm very excited about this conversation as an old lady athlete, a premenopausal athlete. First of all, though, why, what were the challenges in starting this and getting this institute off the ground? And also, why is it so important to study women specifically?
So I think, as we're already talking about, so much of the research has been focused on men. And so while a lot of us got great sports medicine training and had awesome coaches along the way, when things came up that were specifically female athlete issues, there wasn't really a playbook. There wasn't research in it. And as we have more and more women involved in sports, more pro leagues, and more women trying to stay active, more questions are arising. So we see that women tear their ACL more frequently. And so why is that? We need to study why that's happening. We see that the menstrual cycle might inhibit someone's performance based on how they're feeling because of cramps or something else. And we haven't been talking about that. So I think in the last few years, people have just gotten more and more curious. And I'm really thrilled about that, because I think as an athlete, when my teammates and I had these questions, we were kind of just told to figure it out, and we wouldn't bring it up to coaches or to physicians. So I think we're in a new area, in a new era where we have a lot of opportunity.
I know research takes a really long time, but what, just in the early stages in dealing specifically with female athletes at all different stages of their career, what has stood out to you most about how the female athlete differs from the male athlete in terms of performance, injury prevention, and whatnot?
So I think my biggest thing and our group's biggest thing is trying to dispel myths. Now people can get all sorts of information on Instagram, and it might not be right, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever. We don't even know what some of the differences are. So until we're actually studying sex-specific differences between females and males, and then doing really well-controlled studies in female athletes around their menstrual cycle and during menopause, a lot of it has been guessing. So some of the issues, like we already talked about, ACL injuries happen more frequently. Now, is that because our hormones are playing a role, or is it because we didn't have good neuromuscular training with athletic trainers when we were really young? Is it because women tend to have to go to practice at different hours and kind of get the leftovers in terms of the turf or the equipment? And so a lot of that really requires a lot of research to kind of unpack that and do that well.
One of the challenges, I think, when people are listening or tuning in right now is they're immediately, when we start talking about athletes, people think about elite athletes,
Mm-hmm.
right? They think about professional athletes, and that is a very tiny percentage of the population, whereas athletes like Trenny and me previously, who do things on a regular basis, whether it's organized sports or an organized workout or running, need the same sort of care and critique and support as the elite athletes. Can you talk a little bit about why someone listening at home who says, okay, so I play tennis or pickleball 4 or 5 times a week, I'm, entering menopause, why do I care about this? Why do they care about this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my mind, athletes can be a really broad term. And there was actually a paper a few years ago that decided to actually categorize people. So there's the top tier, the gold medalists at the Olympics. That's a tier 5. But all of us here, if we work out at least 3 times a week with an intention of competing once a year, so like myself, going and rowing in Head of the Charles, I'm a tier 2 athlete. So it really just depends on what you're calling it, but we're not just focused on that very tippity top. Sure, we're working with Olympians and some of those top folks, but we're also working with adolescents to try to prevent injuries and try to teach them good habits. And we're working with the stay-at-home mom who's trying to get back into shape after she's had a baby, like the whole gamut. All of those people like to be physically active, and we want to help them do that well.
How long will it take? Like, how much research do you have to do before you start to figure out the differences between the sexes and start to get some answers to the questions that we've long had about female athletes?
So it depends on the topic. One of the little bit depressing statistics is that it takes about 17 years for a research result to get into the mainstream, and that's part of why we started WISP. We don't want it to take that long. It shouldn't take 17 years for something to become commonplace. But I think with having a website that talks about what we do know and where the gaps are, but really explaining this is what's been done in women, this is what hasn't been done in women, and just being really honest and transparent. We're not trying to sell anything. We're not selling supplements. We're meeting athletes where they are and telling them what is known right now, what is known about injury prevention, neuromuscular training, sports nutrition, mental health, and giving them those tools so that they can make informed decisions. I think we have learned some things. We've learned certain things are more common in women, eating disorders, low energy availability, body image issues, the mental health stresses that go along with being an athlete or a woman in society and trying to navigate the world. Those are all things that we do have a lot of information about so far. And then the other things that are getting addressed, I'd say, the key is really multidisciplinary, widespread collaboration. And so with WISP, we have international collaborators helping us to solve these projects. ACL, so ACL looking at it from a biomechanics lens, a nutrition lens, and a socioeconomic lens. All of those things coming together is going to speed up these answers.
We're talking with Dr. Kate Ackerman, the co-founder and director of the Women's Health and Sports and Performance Institute. I'm also wondering if this conversation and this research is also another pillar into discussing women's health in a way that doesn't happen, right? I'm on TikTok a lot and Instagram a lot and seeing people surprised about menopause, about things that no one told them, even though they go to the doctor all the time, even though they have been somewhat privileged with healthcare. Shock of all shock, they didn't know this. Or about pregnancy. Had no idea that happened during pregnancy. Or your period. Had no idea, and here we are, humans on the planet all this time. We have access to everything in the world, and we're shocked about the basic functions of the female body. Is this something you think that will actually help bring it as a sort of 360-degree attention to women's health in our bodies?
Absolutely. I think women are demanding more, and I'm here for it. I love that we have now philanthropists that are donating money towards women's health, that are donating money towards women's sports teams, that are donating money towards getting answers for people. And women are demanding it. We're standing up for ourselves and saying, I want these answers, whether we go to our doctor and find out if our doctor is informed or not. This is now changing medicine because doctors realize they have to get on board. They have to learn this stuff. If they don't have the answers, they better take a course or do more reading. A few years ago, people were afraid to talk about menopause. People weren't talking about their hormone replacement. They were told that maybe it was taboo and that the studies didn't show anything that was great and it was dangerous. And now we've flipped that as people have looked back at some of the old research and realized the analyses weren't quite done the way they should have been. Now people are understanding, actually, for some people, hormone replacement therapy or menopausal hormonal treatment can be beneficial in certain populations, and we need to study it long term so that we can have more nuanced approaches to these women with the different signs and symptoms that they have.
Mm-hmm. And did I read, speaking of that age range, did I read that in the fall there's going to be a more specific sort of study and start to accept patients that are in that stage of life? And what are you hoping to gain with that knowledge and that research?
Yeah, so to be clear, we already see lots of women in menopause. They're more than welcome. Come join us. We see them as patients, but we're launching a study looking at strength interventions and hormone replacement and creatine and getting more science-based evidence behind what we're recommending to people. Only by doing prospective studies are we going to be able to find out what dosing and what things are actually most beneficial for the goals that women have.
This is a very self-serving question.
That was the setup for the
if
self-serving.
you were a woman,
Here
if you were a 49-year-old woman who still runs and cycles and is learning to golf and likes to be very active, and I wanted to come to the institute, what is it like? Like what would my experience be like?
So you would probably start coming to WISP Medical, which is our affiliated practice, and they're all co-located. So we have a clinic and we have a research space and we have a gym, and they're all there. So you would come with whatever your issue is, fatigue or questions about your nutrition, and you would see one of our providers about that issue. We might do some labs to determine, your iron studies, might check your hormones if it's pertinent or not, and talk about, most importantly, your history. So a lot of people are now going online and getting quick medical advice, getting supplements, but it's really back to the basics in terms of a good clinician asking about your past history. What is specific about you, your family history, the benefits and risks of some of these things, and then talking about the basics, like you said, that they might not be aware of, like what is good strength training for a woman who's 49 years old? What is a good way to help with some of the symptoms? Is it sleep hygiene? Is it specific training? Is it specific nutritional changes? is very bespoke. And I think that's the part we can't forget, is that everybody is an individual and has their own specific needs.
So I'm 64, so I played high school sports and middle school sports when we got the really sloppy leftovers, like, if we got anything at all, right? So it was always the gym was cold, or we'll just keep reusing our uniforms, the boys get new uniforms, all that. And what I'm wondering, and I've said this a million times, it's either practical or cynical, depending on how you look at it, that once men were going to be able to bet on women's sports would become more popular. I think that has become true. And with that, though, will become the attention to the female athlete and what the female athlete needs to be successful. How do you keep, the Williams sisters continuing to play tennis if they want to, because we want to see them, and that's their moneymaker right there. How do we keep the WNBA players on the court as much as possible after they've had a baby, right? How has it become, this is the cynical part, how do we keep the machine going? Are you seeing that kind of convergence that I see here, that suddenly everything is rising to the top to at least getting close to a parity with the men's sports and men's athletes?
So I think there's a couple things in there to unpack. Number one, yes, things get more attention if the men are interested in it, but I don't think that's required. We have to remember that women are half the population. Women also have more of the spending power. And what we're seeing is more and more women demanding more. If you look at some of these new women's pro teams, who are the owners? A lot of them are women. Yep. So I think we shouldn't belittle that. Not that you are belittling it, but we don't have to keep asking permission from the men. The fan bases that we're getting for these women's teams are a lot of women, and our younger men, our little boys, some of them don't know about the patriarchy. My son, the first time we were watching women's basketball, did not know that men played basketball. So, part of this is just a generational shift. And I do hope it gets to be parity. I think it will become parity. And there are a lot of he's for she's out there, and we have to lean into them and then not keep asking permission from those who are doing it for other reasons, for just financial reasons or other reasons that aren't pertinent to us.
I was playing a pickup game with my daughter when she was in middle school, and a little kid came up to me and said, "Did you play in the WNBA?" And I said, "Oh, we didn't have the WNBA when I was growing up." And he went, "Were you born in the last century?" Yes. So I hit him.
My kids remind me,
I said,
sometimes that happens. Yeah, my kids always tease me for being born in the last century as well.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is, right? Again, this might be somewhat of a selfish question, but when have you seen with the athletes that you're treating and the women that you're treating an increase in performance when you figure out what's going on? But not even just that, but just an ability to do what they love longer. Because I think as we get older, it's less about winning a race or coming out on top and being able to live a long, healthy, independent life.
Yeah, it's a combination. And it depends on the person. I think the moms who are bringing their daughters in are excited that we have these different resources, that we're talking about nutrition, that we're normalizing discussions about menstrual cycles, that we're talking about neuromuscular training. The women in their 30s and 40s are trying to figure out how they can prevent injuries and then get better from the injuries that they have, to your point, to keep going. And then our really elite athletes are staying in the game longer. And so that's a fun group to work with, because we're pushing the envelope. We're pushing that bar that they thought they had in front of them, saying, how far can I go? There are different people like Allison Felix announcing that she's going to come back and go for trials for 2028. She's won more than anybody can imagine. She's a mom. She's the kind of person who's pushing boundaries. And by those elite people really pushing and seeing what they're capable of doing, it just inspires the rest of us.
I'd have to imagine, too, there's a trickle-down effect. Like, you don't have to be an athlete to benefit from what you guys are learning.
Yeah, it's really about women's health. We always put in that component of physical activity. We want people to be physically active, and the people that tend to come to the clinic are people who are wanting to at least try it or are already doing it and want to know how to do it safely and better.
What can we look forward to? What's coming out of the Institute?
So we are going to be publishing more information about postmenopausal women. We're working closely with this great group called Prowess. So it's the chief medical officers of all of the pro teams. And so we have some guidelines coming up about what should be expected for women's health. I think we got a lot of irons in the fire. We're hiring more people into the clinic, and we're really excited to just keep growing.
I love it. Thank you so much. We have been speaking with Dr. Kate Ackerman, the co-founder and director of the Women's Health, Sports, and Performance Institute and an associate professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. WHSPinstitute.org for more info.
You're such a pro, Trenna.
Well, I looked, I figured out it was Women's Health Sports Performance Institute. Dr. Ackerman, thanks. We are saying goodbye to those of you who are listening on NEPM, but make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413. That begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The show here in Boston, though, continues. Coming up after a quick break, we got food policy analyst Corby Kummer. I'm Trenny Casey. She is Sue O'Connell. We're in for Jim and Marjorie. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, and we're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News.
The news and reporting you hear on GBH is made possible by the listeners who trust the GBH newsroom to deliver fact-based news and information every day. Support the journalism you trust. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Classic Harbor Line, offering a range of cruises for families, corporate gatherings, and sightseeing day sails throughout the summer in Boston. More at classicharborline.com. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, dedicated to helping individuals and businesses pursue their financial goals with a full range of banking and wealth management services. Learn more at cambridgetrust.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, winner of 4 regional Edward R. Murrow Awards. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH, what matters to you?
Welcome back to hour number 2 of BPR and 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, they are off today. They will be back, though, tomorrow at the BPL. She is NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell. I'm NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. Hello again, Sue.
Hello, Trenny.
Hello.
So we're going
like to speak in an English accent.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. All right, we're going to start the second hour off. We're now joined on Zoom by the great Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, Senior Editor at The Atlantic, and Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hello, Corby. What accent do you want to speak in today?
I can't do an accent.
Oh, come on.
I'll do it a low training. I can try, but not as good as yours.
Okay.
Corby, I'm not great at accents. I also apparently am not as culturally refined or have not had the cultural food experiences that our World Cup visitors have had. I've never been to a Buc-ee's. I've never eaten at a Waffle House. I definitely have had a big gulp, though, at a 7-Eleven. These are the things that people are going bananas for, no pun intended there, as they come over from Europe and South America to the United States for the first time. Like, they can't believe some of our interesting food options.
Ranch dressing.
Although, honestly, ranch dressing is elite.
What's your reaction, Corby?
I don't want to believe that this is what has excited forwarders the most, or visitors to our country. Taco Bell, I am finally in the Holy Land. Someone posts. Bussy, how do you pronounce B-U-C?
Buc-ee's. That's Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's. Oh, that's Buc-ee's.
Yeah, it's a little Bucky Beaver.
Yes, of course. Okay, Buc-ee's. But ranch dressing, Europe, why didn't anyone tell me ranch sauce is like crack? Europe, we need ranch ASAP. I mean, Americana is one thing, but just fast food and big gulps and milkshakes with cake in them, pieces of cake in them. I'm not sure we want this to be America's chief export to the rest of the world.
I have to say the one that cracked me up the most, my daughter and I are totally in the World Cup visits North America, algorithm and totally loving it, is like one, I don't know where he was from, but he was basically saying how he was so shocked how judgmental he was about how overweight we were. And now he understands, and now he thinks it's worth it. Like, he was totally like, I can see why they can't stop eating this. I know how bad it is for me, but it is so delicious. And I'm like, I have been to Europe and I have eaten your food, and I didn't come back saying, oh my gosh, I wish I had their junkiest food of all. So.
No, I always come back from Europe, Corby, and think to myself, why can't we have food like they have in Europe, which is the right color, the right size, it is flavorful, it doesn't seem like it's packed with preservatives. But now this is what we've done. We put crack in our food.
We're a virus.
Yeah, we are a virus that is infecting. Like, I do wonder, like, I don't know. Now is ranch is Hidden Valley going to pop up and be the biggest export?
Let me ask the highbrow question. All right. So one of the things that we've enjoyed too, I think it was the Japanese tourist who was excited about how you go into a Mexican restaurant in America and you already get the food, you already get the chips and the salsa. And I can't believe it. You already get food. Is there some great melting pot moment that we're going to get from this, where all the people of the world come to America to enjoy sport and they go back and we get something better than ranch dressing? We get some good highbrow, fusion something. What do you think,
people
Corby?
basically what she's saying, people like us a little bit more than they probably did when they first came here and expected the worst.
I guess the question is, will people go back and demand that their own restaurants radically increase the salt and sugar quotient? Because that's what we've been talking about. It's fat, but it's the food engineering, so-called bliss point that, I've read about, I've wondered, are food engineers quite that calculating and evil? There are new exposés coming out about how deeply the tobacco industry and food industry were intertwined when they were merging. And Kraft Heinz was owned by Philip Morris, I guess. And there were and Nabisco, a lot of these companies, the tobacco side was helping increase addictiveness and flavor. It was their technology. And there's some terrific pieces coming out. So is the new fusion going to be, here's a way to addict you more to food? So not only will people come back saying, my God, how fat America is, but I want to be that fat too because I love their food? Or will they try to incorporate actual flavors from their own countries in a way? I don't know. I don't hold with fusion. I want people to go back and say, thank God I can get, my good French government subsidized food. Because not only is French food, good in big quotation marks because it's always been fancy, the government has invested a tremendous amount in schools and in increasing the quality of frozen food. It's invested in the infrastructure. There's lots we can learn from Europe to make our food better. At the next World Cup, we hope that people will come back, enthused about, okay, fried clams, why didn't they go to Ipswich? Fried clams, we have great things. Lobster rolls, that's what they should be coming back about.
We're speaking with Corby Kummer, who is not, as folks are wondering, Corby, if you're in a Wizard of Oz movie or if you're in a cheese cave
Grand
or if you're
Canyon.
broadcasting from the Grand Canyon. So we're not going to disclose.
New York Academy of Medicine talking about food as medicine.
All right, see, there you go. I'm more highbrow than that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the screwworm, which I sadly know more than I'd like to know about because of a Radiolab episode recently that just happened before the screwworm, about the man whose goal it was to eliminate the screwworm 50, 60 years ago or longer than that, and how I finished the episode and thought, yay, something we did. And then, of course, news that the screwworm may be coming back. Can you just briefly explain why it's coming back and what it does?
Screwworm is a fly that finds flesh wounds in animals, especially cattle and dogs, lives in them, burrows in, lays eggs, and then starts eating the flesh. So it's out of a science fiction horror movie. It actually eats flesh and it kills animals. It is horrible, and I didn't realize that it only came to the Southwest United States really after the war, and in the 60s and 70s. In the 70s, it was causing hundreds of millions of dollars in damage to Texas cattle. And so there were these great, maybe the Radiolab was talking about sterilized flies that were engineered by exposing them to, I think, gamma rays. Very heavy use of gamma rays. And it would sterilize them and it would neutralize the effect and radically reduce the screwworm population. in an area. And so science in the late 60s developed this, and in the 70s it was used effectively. But what I didn't know, and in this terrific, I think, CNN report that went online, is that organized crime illegally ships cattle from Central America through Mexico, and it gets into Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico especially, because there aren't enough border patrols, both within Mexico and at the Texas border, to disease check these animals that are being smuggled in and then sold. And it's a way of organized crime in Central America getting more profits and transporting its money on the hoof. But it's introducing this screwworm because there aren't enough border checks. And it's terrible. It sounds like a sort of funny name and something weird and exotic, but if you talk to farmers, and in my Food Leaders Fellows program, we've got farm organization representatives, they're terrified by screwworm. And they're saying the government has to spend hundreds more millions to reintroduce these flies and these control techniques.
Why are they terrified? Like, what happens if this gets worse? What is the outcome for farmers, for consumers, and also, people who have a household pet, who have a dog? Like, is there the risk that this spreads not just in the southwestern United States, but nationwide?
There is a risk. I haven't seen it in terms of, it's apparently dogs that all travel with a herd of cattle, and I don't know whether it's going to be a U.S. house pet, but for farmers here, if it reaches their cattle, each cattle is worth thousands of dollars to them. They operate on tiny margins. Apparently, Central American farmers have never had eradication efforts on a broad scale, and they factor in the loss of animals into their spreadsheets. U.S. farmers don't. And they often have small heads. And as we've talked about the rising prices of beef, a lot of it is the smaller herds because of drought, because of farmers not bothering to increase the size of their herds because Argentina was underpricing them before Trump's tariffs. So we've got small herds already. And if they start to be decimated and attacked, they lose cattle, the cattle die, and they've lost thousands of dollars per head of cattle.
Corby, one of my rants about our border issue for at least the past 15 to 20 years, as I have continually said, we're fighting the wrong fight at the border. We're fighting trying to keep humans out, which you can argue one way or another whether we should or we shouldn't. But we're not paying attention to the other stuff that's getting trucked over the border. That the fentanyl gets trucked over the border. People don't bring fentanyl over. Food stuff that we shouldn't have. I mean, how many of you have been stopped at the airport because you took the banana off the international flight and the dog decided to pay a lot of attention to you? I understand that kind of enforcement. And part of the challenge, there's a lot of, Spider-Man finger pointing in this article by CNN. But we could easily send more U.S. Inspectors to the border to check trucks to see where the beef is coming from, where the cattle is coming from. That would help stop this problem. But the Trump administration doesn't seem to be paying enough attention to that. And this could impact farmers even further than the tariffs have, and the fertilizer delay that we're getting from the Strait of Hormuz, and the lack of selling the soybean to China because of the tariff issues, and now the cattle and beef prices, which would devastate them. Shouldn't this be a top priority for the Trump administration?
Of course, but I have to mention a kind of rich reaction from the Trump administration when a Texas farmer said, hey, bring back that sterilized fly eradication. It worked great. And the administration said, it's not environmentally safe. It's not good for the environment. And so we shouldn't be doing it. While at the same time, they're trying to sort of tear down all of the Environmental Protection Act protections, so that they were hauling out environmentally safe practices. And I don't know how unsafe it is, but they said, no, we don't want to use pesticides that could harm the cattle. But they do need to be taking this more seriously, especially when Trump says, I'm the best friend the farmers have ever had.
Let's end on a happier, more fun note here. Pickles. I fancy myself a pickle connoisseur. Sue, I don't know.
Do you? I didn't know that.
I love pickles.
Well, I'm old enough to have been able to
pickles.
go up to the Schwartz's Deli up on Shirley Avenue
Yeah?
Revere and reach in to the bucket, to the big barrel to pull out.
With your dirty, filthy hands?
Everybody's dirty. Well, it was all vinegar. I'm sure it killed everything.
It's
It
vinegar
all-
and salt.
You know,
It's gonna
so we
combat
used to
those
reach
bacteria.
in and we'd pull, and your whole arm would smell like pickle for the whole day. It was great.
By the way, I'm asked from behind if I like half sour dill or full sour. I'm a dill pickle gal myself. I like a good dill pickle. But the reason we're talking about pickles, Corby, is because it is being called the pumpkin spice of the summer, that everything is pickle flavored. You can get pickle chips. You can get a pickle smoothie from Smoothie King. You can get regular pickles. You can get butter pickles, sour pickles, dill pickles. How do you feel about this latest food trend?
I'm kind of fascinated by it because salt has been creeping into desserts and sweets for a very long time. And it's been a big, you can't get caramel that's caramel. It's all salted caramel and into chocolate. So the idea that salt is creeping into ice cream and other treats, but it's again this exaggerated flavor that we were talking about earlier. It's more benign because it's naturally fermented products and it's great. A pickled juice can have lots of helpful bacteria that'll help your gut, but it's, we're talking salt, garlic, spices, and and vinegar. And so it's sweet and sour. Dill pickles, which Trenny are also my favorite, have a significant sweet component. What's better than a bread and butter dill pickle on a hamburger? So, it's mixing sweet and sour and sort of ratcheting up the palate to have really high, strong flavors. Salt, sweet, sugar, vinegar.
What does that do to our palate over the long term? Like, is there a
it
negative?
dulls it terribly.
Okay, great. Awesome. That's what I kind of figured, but I'm not the science person.
So I'll share with you, Corby, and I don't know, Trenny, if you've been part of this, but there's a department in our office at the Boston Media Center for NBC where this department bring in exotic potato chips from around the world. Have you had any of these?
Oh, on the Telemundo side.
Jess. Oh no, over by the technical side.
Oh, the technical. Yes. Yeah, where the puzzles always are.
Yes, where the puzzles are. It's a very hard place to work. It's very stressful with puzzles and chips. And I had a ham flavored potato chip last week. I don't know where it was from. And I have not been able to get that taste out of my mouth.
Good taste, bad
taste.
It
was bad.
Is that good or bad?
It was bad. And this is not on our list of things to talk about, but I just wanted to ask, where does the line of a potato chip no longer tasting like a potato chip land? I mean, it seems to me we have the ability to artificially make the flavor of almost anything in the world, and we just continue to do it. Is there what's the rationale behind that? I mean, it's
product extension. People are already proven to buy and spend a lot of money on potato chips, fried, salty. Mm-hmm. It's great. It crunches a lot. And so, of course, you're going to extend it and increase your sales just as much as possible. There is no limit, Sue.
I also wonder, and this is sort of like a downer question, but I also wonder that all of these creations of these new flavors and these new products in foods that are already unhealthy, is there a market for it because of where people are economically? That you can go into a store and you can buy a bag of chips for a lot less, say, than you can buy a bunch of fresh fruits, vegetables, and lean proteins that are good for you. It's a lot easier just to go grab things off the shelf and eat those instead.
There's no question. They're shelf stable. They last forever. They provide a lot of calories for not many dollars, and in an age of incredibly increased SNAP dollars that could help you with fresh food, of course, that's what people are going to buy.
Oh, it's so disappointing. Although I am not going to lie, I do love a spicy jalapeno chip, and I do like a pickle chip. I can't lie. All right, Corby, enjoy the Wizard of
Oz.
Say hi to the Wiz for us.
And he says hi to you.
Oh, great. Wonderful. I bet he likes pickles since his favorite color is green.
Sure
All right, we
is.
have been speaking with Corby Kummer. He's the executive director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. Corby, thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to check in on tick safety with UMass Amherst microbiologist Stephen Rich. I'm Trenny Casey. She is Sue O'Connell. We are in for Jim and Marjorie, and you're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Sometimes the story you need to hear isn't the one dominating the news. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III, host of The Curiosity Desk. Our mission? To be your guide through it all. From how does it work to how did we get here? From compound interest to, well, compounds, like molecules and stuff. We'll follow our curiosity wherever it leads. Join us on the journey, weekdays at 1 here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Bunker Hill Community College, offering 6-week summer mini-sessions to achieve college and skills goals. Sessions start June 1st and July 13th. Registration is open. bhcc.edu/summer.
Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, clearly off today, but they're going to be back tomorrow at the Boston Public Library. I'm NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell. She is NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. So here we are. Now, by now, I'm sure you have already heard that the season this year is especially bad for ticks, especially here in Massachusetts. And you've probably already heard about the allergic reaction known as alpha-gal, which is causing meat and dairy allergies. So it can really be very easy to get caught up in the hysteria around ticks. So we thought we'd get a little bit of a healthy reality check. What's the best way to stay safe from ticks and also have a good summer? Joining us now on Zoom, UMass Amherst microbiology professor Stephen Rich. Welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Well, thanks for having me.
Stephen, thanks for joining us, Dr. Rich. I mean, first of all, Sue sort of alluded to this, that there is a lot of attention around ticks. I think people are worried, especially if you're going to the vineyard this summer. They're worried you're going to get the alpha-gal and you're not going to be able to eat meat and dairy anymore. In reality, though, what is the level of concern that people should have around being bitten and by a tick that is carrying one of these diseases?
Yeah, the reality is take a deep breath, because we're seeing a tick season like we see every tick year. It's not necessarily extremely worse than last year or this year. It's seasonal, and it peaks right around this time of year. That's why people are alarmed. Same thing happened last year, happened the year before, and it'll probably happen in the years to come. So yeah, we are hitting a season where the ticks are most active in biting people, but there are things that you can do to protect yourself.
Like, you can tell us so we make sure that we're being safe. What are some things that folks, we're always telling folks to get outside, touch the grass, look at the sun, take a hike, go for a jog, touch a tree.
But also wear a full bodysuit so you don't get bit by a tick.
So what should we be doing?
Well, people put sunscreen on, right? They wouldn't go outside. So that's the difference, is we didn't used to put sunscreen on. Now we know we put sunscreen on. So now there are measures that you can take to keep ticks safe as well. So there are things you can do to your person. You can put some repellents on your skin if you're comfortable with that. You could just make an option of wearing light colored clothing so that you can see the dark colored ticks against the light colored clothing. Another little trick we tell people to do is to tuck their clothing in. So if you tuck your pants into your socks, fashion statement there, but and also tuck your your shirt into your pants. The object here is to get the ticks to crawl up on the outside of your clothing rather than the inside, so that they either get knocked off or you have a chance of catching them before they get very far.
Dr.
But by and large, sorry.
Go ahead, continue.
I was going to say that by and large, the number one thing that we tell people to do is to think about wearing clothing that's been treated with something called permethrin, which is deadly to ticks, very safe to people.
So here's what you talk about: tucking your pants into your socks and your shirt into your pants. But what happens if I'm going for a trail run and it's 80 degrees and the humidity is 80% and I don't want to have like heat exhaustion or heat stroke? So I'm going to wear shorts and maybe a tank top. Like, is there anything you can spray on yourself? Is there another way to protect yourself so you aren't also completely miserable and hot in the dead of summer?
As I mentioned, you can spray yourself with a repellent, something containing DEET or picaridin. Those are effective on your skin. You have to reapply them pretty regularly, and they will sort of wash away as you sweat and perspire. A thing about clothing. So if you're wearing long pants and a long shirt, then it's best to do the tucking trick we're talking about. If you're not, well, you've sort of taken care of the problem that you're not giving the ticks an opportunity to go under your clothing, which is the worst case scenario. If they're underneath your long pants and you don't see them, that's the most problematic tick. If you're wearing shorts and your leg is exposed, your knee's exposed, and you see the tick on your knee, you've sort of solved the problem a different way.
Dr. Rich, one of the challenges folks have, I think, around talking normally and practically around ticks is that it's so hard sometimes to get diagnosed if you've been infected. My daughter has Borrelia, which is a more rare version of a tick-borne illness, which she was tested for the full panel of Lyme, when then years went by and someone else said to me, no, they should be testing for this as well. And then finally they tested, and she had to go through a PICC line with intravenous antibiotics, and it was horrendous. It was just a horrendous treatment, and it still lives in her body. You know, we still do the testing and see the numbers. So people get really afraid of something that they can't really see if they got it, and then they have a hard time, getting tested for it. So what's the practical approach that you would say about just, it's no worse now than it was before, but at the same time, we see daily stories about the Martha's Vineyard issue. You say there's no really safe place in the world where there are no ticks right now, but how do we manage our fear and the practicality of getting treated with getting out into the world?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your daughter's story, but taking that as an example, what we usually do when we're sick, we go to the doctor, and then the doctor works backwards and figures out what's making us sick. Ticks present a different opportunity, actually, because when a tick bites us, the tick may infect us, but there's a period of time before any diagnostic test that would be done in a person is of use, and or any treatment would be valuable. So there's this point between when the tick bites and when a diagnosis occurs. So we recommend that one good way to fill that gap is to be monitoring the symptoms, so looking for example, rash at the site of the wound, the site of the tick bite, or symptoms, obviously. But the other thing you can do is you can do the DNA testing of that tick, as it were. You can test whether that tick was specifically infected with different types of pathogens and help your doctor to get to the diagnosis 2 to 3 weeks hence after the tick bite occurred. So we think tick testing is a huge piece of that. You've alluded a couple times to alpha-gal. So alpha-gal isn't caused by a bacterium, it's caused by a sugar. It's not a virus or bacterium, so it's not infectious. But we also think that there's good reason to think that a tick bite can provide the clues about whether the risk of alpha-gal lies ahead.
We have a question from Chris in JP. He asked us to please ask our tick expert to talk about the poppy seed-sized nymph ticks. Do they spread disease? If so, is it at the same level as larger ticks?
So the thinking is that size tick, the nymphal tick, spreads disease at a greater frequency than adult ticks. And the reason for that is that it's so small, it has a higher likelihood of feeding to repletion or feeding to the point where it's actually going to dump its payload into the person that it's feeding on. So they're very dangerous ticks.
We have another text, anonymous this time. My dog brings ticks into the house. What can I do to protect my dog and therefore myself? I've had Lyme 3 times.
You can vaccinate your dog, and soon you may be able to vaccinate yourself for Lyme disease. You can also use preventatives. There are a variety of different ones that are either pour-on or orals that will kill ticks on your pets. There's some of the work that we're doing in our laboratories to figure out whether those same technologies can be utilized or those same approaches can be utilized to kill ticks on white-tailed deer. So white-tailed deer, you will hear, are fundamentally important for ticks because they're the adult breeding hosts for the 2 most important species.
Is there any thing around our yards we could be doing, especially for those of us who live on the vineyard or live in more wooded areas? Is there a natural barrier to ticks?
There is a barrier that you can produce. It's usually not a natural barrier. The most effective ones are synthetics. So synthetic chemistries that can be sprayed in a barrier approach, and you use the perfect word for it. It's basically making a little moat, as it were, a tick moat around your property. It doesn't last maybe a month or so, and it has to be replaced because the active ingredients dispense over time. But you can produce that little boundary. What we always admonish people, though, is that doesn't mean you're tick-free, because you wander through that boundary into your neighbor's yard to go to a barbecue or something, and they haven't treated their yard, you're exposed. Or you go hiking this weekend, you're away from your home, you're exposed. So don't think that the perimeter spray or the barrier spray is going to cure all the problem.
All right, great insight before we get into a very busy summer season. Thank you very much, Stephen Rich. We have been speaking with Stephen Rich, microbiology professor at UMass Amherst. Coming up after this quick break, we will open the lines to get your thoughts on the growing number of people trading in the clothes they own for an ever-rotating wardrobe of rented items. Do you rent clothes? What about your home and your car? Is renting actually better? Call or text next. I'm Trenny Casey. She's Sue O'Connell. We are in for Jim and Marjorie. You're listening to BPR and 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Seven games, millions of visitors, thousands of ripple effects. The World Cup will touch Massachusetts in ways big and small, and GBH News is tracking every beat. How communities prepare, how cultures celebrate, how daily life bends around this global moment. Find every story at gbhnews.org/World Cup.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, with exhibits this summer by artist Jan Lormer, special exhibits from the museum's collection, plus a new sculpture exhibit, Under Construction, America at 250. artcomplex.org. And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart.
Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan off today, but they'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell. She is NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. Listen,
wearing all clothes I own at the present moment.
Not me. I've renting something right now.
Oh, I love it.
We'll talk about it in just a sec, because we're wondering, do the clothes make the man or woman? So does it matter if you own or rent them? The Atlantic is out with a deep dive, a phrase that Jim hates, but he's not here, on the relatively new phenomenon of clothing rental services. Nuuly is the most popular, but there's Rent the Runway and others. And for $98 a month plus tax, customers get to rent any 6 clothing items on the Nuuly app, free and easy returns, no dry cleaning, no concerns about what happens when your body changes and you need new clothes. And for the busy American workers like me and Trenny, it might make sense spending more than $1,000 a year on clothes you don't actually own, but it seems like the subscription model is everywhere these days for things like music. Look, no one even owns a physical media anymore. Mm-hmm. So for even the big ticket items like cars and houses, are you opting to rent rather than buy? Is it a choice in 2026, or is renting all you can afford right now? The lines are open, 877-301-8970. Call or text. Is renting everything the future? I rent and lease everything I have. Trenny, I am
Sue
a
is
renter.
What Sue's telling you,
and
she
a
can
leaser.
cut and run at any time.
Any moment I could be gone. I have a flex car right now. I have
what's
a flex car is a 30-day rental car that you rent for 30 days and you can just turn it over. It takes care of the insurance. It takes care of, and they're not paying me. This is not an endorsement. So I have a leased car that I lease.
Okay.
And I have a flex car.
Oh, because you have 2 people in your household.
2 people in my household, and the flex car I can return at the end of the month or keep. I am wearing a Rent the Runway top right now, and I rent that. I am a renter. I don't own property. I rent, I lease, I rent, I lease.
Okay, so I am not as dramatic with my renting and leasing. I used to lease my car when I was a single person because I liked that when you leased a car, I didn't drive that much. I never got to the mileage limits. And then all of your maintenance was included as well in your lease. And then you never got to like high maintenance points because you leased the car. And so by the time you turned it in, you didn't have it. So it makes sense there. I rent my clothes for work. I use a subscription service called Armoire. And so I have an unlimited yearly subscription. So I get 6 pieces at a time. I can swap them out as necessary. I'm going, my brother's getting married this week in Mexico. I don't want to go out and buy 4 different dresses for dinners and rehearsals and all this stuff. I did buy a dress for the actual wedding. But I'm going to rent all my other outfits, like fun stuff to wear on the plane. But I do still, and maybe this is just too tied to the American dream, because I rented for so long, owning, like when my husband and I bought our condo, like I like owning I like the idea that we have equity in that home that we can turn into another home. I like paying myself back instead of paying somebody back and not having anything in the end. On renting.
I owned a home and the mulching. Why am I mulching? What am I doing? The lawn. Why am I paying? I'm not going to do it. I got to with the snow removal, the new roof, replace the window. Do you really end up with a bonus? Because the nickel and diming of all the things you have to pay for, the taxes, which I know. Bless you. You okay? Yeah. You threw your back out sneezing. So. Yeah. Should we get the doctors back?
Sorry, keep going.
All the nickel and diming that you have to do in order to get through to the end of selling it with your equity. I mean, people could sue me for all sorts of stuff. I don't have any assets. Look at that.
That's fair.
I could cut in a moment. I could be in Key Largo tomorrow. Or Tijuana.
All right, 877-301-8970. We want to hear from you. Is renting clothes, cars, your home, everything, is that the future? Maybe even renting furniture, renting a fully furnished apartment. Andy in Boston says, I haven't owned a car since 2017. In fact, I'm texting this in the parking lot as I'm about to leave my return zip car.
There you go.
Which is what I use whenever I need a car to go somewhere outside Boston. Otherwise, I walk or take the T wherever I need to go. I save thousands of dollars a year on car ownership and parking and feel like I'm doing something good for the environment, to not mention my health. I love this idea. And honestly, we own our car. We bought it, owned it. Nice thing about owning the car is it's paid off now and we've taken care of it. So we may go 10 years without a car payment. So that is the one positive. But I do understand the car, the minute you drive it off the lot, it depreciates.
Yeah.
It's
and
not
then you
an
get
asset.
your maintenance. You get at least $1,000 a year in maintenance.
At least. And then don't even get me started on parking. But we are a one-car household. Even though there are 2 of us, we are a one-car household. My husband's able to walk to work. If we could have no car, honestly, if I could do the zip car thing, if I didn't have to drive from Boston to Needham every day to work, if we had a better like public transportation system, I would get rid of my car in a heartbeat. I would get, so the leasing the car I just, again, I don't know. Maybe it's like my Midwestern sensibilities, just not owning home. Like you talk about all the stuff you have to do. We live in a condo, so we pay an HOA, but it's not a super high HOA. I would put it, and we don't have a lot of like that. Includes our snow removal. It includes if we have to get the building repointed. If we have to. I would like, I don't know if everybody in the building's listening, I would like to redo like our front door and paint our walls and our entrance. I think our entrance looks a little shabby, but that would come out of what we've been putting into it. Yep. So that part of it. But then I have friends who own in Charlestown, and lo and behold, their fire escape is coming off the side of the building and they're going to have to take out a home equity. And it's like, it's much worse. So I know.
877-301-8970. We want to hear from you. Is renting, clothing, cars the future or your present? The other thing which I find surprising is the generational divide on this. And again, you and I rent clothing because we're on TV all the time. Yeah. It's actually cheaper than buying the clothing that we would need. We don't get to take it as a tax write-off. People are always shocked by that.
Nope.
We actually have to buy clothing, and we're told what we can and cannot wear within a range.
Also, no one dresses us. No one does our hair.
We got to do
no
it
one does
all
our makeup.
Yeah, we all have to do it ourselves. Our makeup we have to purchase ourselves. But I'm often shocked when I talk to somebody maybe over the age of 50 and I say, oh, I rent my clothing. I mean, I said it to Marjorie once, Marjorie Egan. She went, ew, gross. I went, it comes totally cleaned. It doesn't smell. I don't have to pay for the dry cleaning myself. I wear it. I drop it back in the bag. I send it back. And I'm like this top, I would never buy this top because, according to the rental site, it costs $300. I'm not going to pay $300 for this.
No, but you
I'm
can wear
happy
it
to wear it
once.
for once.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the phones. I think is I can never. I'm not sure.
So red
Not
is
yet. We're not
ready.
ready.
Red is ready.
I
Red
wasn't
is
trained.
ready.
I know red is not. Red should not be go.
Oh, yeah, red. You think
good
red
point.
is stop. But
Yeah,
I
all
look
right.
at it as outside. I will say this. So you're talking about a generational divide. I do think, there's this article in The Hill that don't buy the hype. Home ownership is usually not such a great deal.
Yep.
And they do point out that especially for younger people where money is an issue, that the people who are buying homes are people who have stable incomes and the personal discipline to save up for a down payment. It would be the kind of people who pay their bills on time, build up good credit histories, like that. And if you are a young person,
can't do
it. Also, housing costs in Boston. I have a friend who lives in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and when I was renting, she was like, I don't understand why you just don't buy a house. Why are you paying more in rent than you would in a mortgage? And I was like, oh, you're so sweet in Green Bay, where you think that's so adorable that you think owning a home here would cost me less than renting. Like, no, renting's probably costing me thousands of dollars less than it would be to own a home.
All right, let's go to Casey on the phone in Everett. Hey, Casey, what do you do? Are you a renter?
Hi.
You're a leaser? You're a buyer? You a mix, a hybrid?
I want to say a little bit of a hybrid. Bought my car 10 years ago. I haven't made a car payment since. But I'm a leaser because I want to live next to the city, and I have no children, and I kind of see it as what's the asset for. It's not really going to be passed on to anybody. I don't plan on having children. I'm 40 years old. So it just it makes more sense to just not have to worry about gardening or doing any of those extra things, like shoveling out my car.
I love it.
I
love
do.
it. So the issue of generation. So Casey, Trenny and I were talking about this, Casey, before the show about generational wealth and passing it down, and having a home or having a condo is something. With the statistics showing that people are having fewer children, if any at all, the generational wealth part it's not playing into your decision making, is it, Casey?
Definitely not at all. I think that's particularly why I don't see the idea of owning as enticing at all. I think that, because I don't have any children, I think that it makes no sense for me to, I'd rather just be able to cut and run like you said earlier.
I like it. Cut and run, Casey.
Casey's on my team. You go, Casey. Thanks for calling in.
Well,
one of our anonymous texters says, no one really owns anything anyway. Taxes, taxes, taxes. They take your house, you paid for it, you don't pay taxes. Same with your car. Now, the counter
I want to
argument...
know if the anonymous texter isn't paying their taxes. Well, we pay our taxes at our house. They don't
the
take
counter argument to
anything.
that, though, is that when, I don't pay taxes, I live in Boston and I'm a renter. I don't pay the water bill, the taxes I don't directly pay. Obviously, they get folded into my rent, but they're spread out between whatever my, mom and pop landlord owns. So I'm not directly getting the taxes. So, it's not like you're not paying taxes.
Well, and it is interesting in this Hill article too. They say that in research that the University of Florida has done, International University of Wyoming have crunched numbers. History shows that home ownership underperforms renting versus investing, and that's on average, not a few edge cases. So if you are not owning something, you take that money that maybe you would have spent on a mortgage and reinvest it in the markets. That's actually where you can it's probably a better investment.
Yeah, if you're disciplined enough to do that. I'm not necessarily. All right, let's go to Jim in Tompkin. Jim, welcome to Boston Public Radio. What's on your mind? You a renter, leaser, owner? What's your deal?
Actually, that's funny that I just came up on your feed because I'm the one who sent that text. That anonymous text. I have never owned a house or a car. I just turned 65.
Wow.
A couple weeks ago. This is, you got my number one point there that nobody really owns anything. So it's true. But as you get older, it's the security of it. I know a lot of people that are in trouble because they own their house outright. But they can't really afford everything that goes with it. Like you said, a new roof, taxes if you live near the coast. It's all just a rental anyway, because we're all going to die. But it's just how severe is it going to be to your wallet? I find this fine, just renting. I've never owned a new car in my life, but yet I'm smart about buying my used cars, and they're great. So I don't buy this thing about everybody's going to buy new stuff. It's ridiculous. And that's what the younger generation wants. All new stuff.
So
they got to have a new house with everything they want in it for cheap money.
Jim, I think that's that right there is the perfect point. Is you are from a generation, and I think even Sue and I to an extent are from the same sort of mindset of like, you don't always need new things, right? Like you don't always need the newest, fanciest house. You don't always need the newest, fanciest car. But I think a lot of these generations, particularly like maybe mid-millennials down to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they've grown up so much with social media and this like doing what the Joneses are doing mentality that is why there's so much consumerism. And I think it's also why people are renting, because people rent their clothes because they don't want to wear the same, like, if I wear the same outfit every day, somebody's going to definitely send an email saying I'm wearing the same outfit every day on TV. But if you just have a job in an office,
when
you're
I
just
was on
going out with
radio,
friends,
I didn't rent my clothes. I just and no one saw me. But the other two.
But now everybody sees everything.
I was raised by my mom was born in 1920. My dad was born in 1918. And when the highest praise you could have of getting something was it was good enough. Did you get enough food? It was good enough. Did you go on vacation? It was good enough. The other part of that was too much. Right? How was vacation? It was too much. Like it was too much to do. It was over the top, though it was just Mashpee. And the other part was just not enough. So those were the only three choices I had growing up. Not enough, good enough, too much. Jim, thanks so much for your existential call. I appreciate you putting it into perspective for us.
Mina in Charlestown with a great point here. Agree with most about renting, but when it comes to home, renting makes me feel like I have no control over my life in some ways. After 5 years in my last place, I had to move when the owners sold the building. Can't paint, change doorknobs, etc. Also have to wait for the owner to take care of repairs and such, which often takes a long time. Never know when this landlord decides to sell and I will have to move again. And that's a great point, Mina. We're friends with a couple who bought a house in the suburbs, and when they moved back into the city, they had rented. They rented for 13 years, and now the older couple who had owned that building have passed away, passed it down to their kids. Their kids don't want to manage their units anymore, so they're selling. So now they're in their 70s, and they're out looking for an apartment. They've got to get a broker and put something down, and they've got to move at this point out of their home because they rent and it's not their own.
That's the other side of it, though, is what if you get that big job and you want to move to New York City,
right?
And you have a house and then the market is soft and then you can't sell it.
But if you rent and you can't find somebody to rent it because the market's soft, then you got to pay rent in two places. So then you're screwed no matter what.
All right, let's go to Laurel in Hubbardston, which is in Western Massachusetts, for those of you who don't know. Laurel, welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Thank you, ladies. I'm the other end of the spectrum. I don't rent anything. No leasing, no renting, nothing.
How come?
I built my house. I built my house in '96, and I have made sure all the upkeep was done. And so even though it's 30 years old now, it still looks like brand new.
Great.
I'm still driving the same truck I bought for cash in 2016, and my mechanic is great. And he said, all we need right now is a new undercoat on the truck. He said, it'll last 5 more years.
I love this.
So,
awesome.
Laurel,
I'm a keeper.
You're a keeper. So I think part of my viewpoint on life is I don't want to spend, there are things I don't really care about. I appreciate them. I don't care about having a beautiful house, right? I like it. If someone else does it, I love it, but I don't want to do it. So I don't have any home pride in a way. So do you sound like you have that because you built it. So this gives you joy doing this, right?
Absolutely. And I'm an enormous gardener. And so I need my soil.
Yeah.
I need to be outgrowing food, which I do. I make food for the whole year. I just put it in the freezer and I know what we're eating.
Love it.
I love it.
Love it. Can't do it, but I love it. And I appreciate it. Laurel, thanks for calling.
I don't have any outdoor space, so I definitely can't garden.
Absolutely. So, that's another kind of aspect of your personality. Like, I am so easygoing when it comes to a lot of things. And so what happens is when someone is really invested in making the home of their dreams, I'm like, yeah, that's nice. I wouldn't do it.
So you're not someone, I suppose, do you like to entertain?
No. I like to be entertained. I like to go to parties. I'll go to your house.
Okay. And I like when we get to have people over. I like to cook. And I'm constantly on Sean. I'm like, we gotta reno our kitchen. We gotta reno our kitchen. And he's like, but why if we're not going to stay here forever?
Yeah. For ease of use is another thing too.
I would love to just go, but I understand it. But I am probably more like our last caller where I would like to do some nice things to my home that makes me feel proud that it is my home.
Okay, so we, and I'm proud of your home too. I'm proud of your home too. We're taking your calls and your texts, 877-301-8970. Are you renting? Are you buying clothes, cars, homes? We want to hear, is this the where we are, or is this just, a blip? We're going to take Jane in Concord. Jane, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind on Boston Public Radio?
Hi, I do not currently rent any clothes.
Okay.
And I'm not young. So I have a lot of clothes. but I was thinking that renting clothes, if you rent things of like a really fine quality fabric and you love to change what you wear all the time, renting is a great option because you might not be able to afford really expensive designer type clothes. And I wonder if people are doing that for like a really fancy wedding gown that they're never going to wear again.
It is so great. I mean, we went to the Emmys just recently, 2 weekends ago. I actually was able to rent 3 outfits that I could choose from that I knew would work for me, and I would never have purchased them.
Also, Sue won an Emmy.
Oh, I won. Did I mention I won?
She won the Emmy.
Another soft flex there. So thank you very much. Jane, what do you rent? What do you rent?
Do you rent anything?
Currently housing, actually, but I have been a homeowner in the past. I have not rented. I own cars. But also the other thing about it is people are buying a lot of really poor quality clothes and a lot of synthetic or made from oil clothes. And I like to shop secondhand, and you see tons of polyester everywhere. So there's beaches in Africa and Chile that are piles of mountains of clothes you can look up online. It's really horrible. So that's why I was thinking renting would be good. Can I just throw in one more final thing to Trini?
Sure. Yeah.
On another, talk about why there's not more reporting about women's sports and why, like on regular radio reports, they never talk about women's sports. They always talk about all the men's pro teams. So we don't hear about women's sports.
Yeah, I think that's, Jane, we have that conversation all the time at work. We, I think, have done a better job recently of talking about women's sports. Like we included in our sports updates. We do segments on the WNBA. We did a segment leading into the legacy to the NWSL season starting. Part of the issue is that sports viewership and listenership is still male dominated. And so you can only do so much of it to serve your total audience. So it's sort of a balance of like, what does our core audience listen to versus what we always want to talk about. It's kind of similar like with soccer. Like we're not just now talking about the World Cup. It's like the first time in 4 years I've talked about soccer.
Thanks for your call, Jane. So that's been a great segment. I'm reminded that I said this morning I wanted to rent my friends, too. I did say that off the air, like the Brendan Fraser movie Rental Family in Tokyo. So I'll rent you. Look who's here.
Well, thank you.
It's Edgar
Hi,
Edgar.
I'd be happy to be rented by you.
I appreciate that.
I feel like there's a term for that in society. But,
well, just friends.
I can't think of what that might be
when you rent a person.
Spend money to rent a person for a period of time.
There you go.
Yeah,
just for conversation.
There should be a term for that. Someone will think of it.
We could tune in to listen to your show.
That's true. We're coming up in just
what are we talking about
minutes.
Today?
Well, I mean, you were just talking about the World Cup. Have you ambled over to Pierce Park to see the world's largest soccer ball?
I have not.
That's part of the festivities
and
here?
Where's Pierce Park?
Yeah.
Pierce Park is in East Boston.
That's right.
That would be a neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts.
I've heard of
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and it is Guinness has officially measured the ball. It is the winner. It has smashed the old world. Do you know where the old world record holding largest soccer ball in the world
Brazil.
was? No.
Kansas City.
No.
Russia.
No. Qatar.
Oh,
at Doha
sense.
Bank in Qatar.
That makes sense.
So, but now. Boston right now, and you can see it till I think the 18th or something, home to the world's largest soccer ball. And also, we've got some folks from Bunker Hill who are going to bring in a really old musket. And
so I was
bayonet.
at Bunker Hill last week doing a little talk.
You didn't go to Bunker Hill Day yesterday?
Archaeology?
Well, I was talking to the people about the Trump administration removing the banners.
The signage,
And they were having the archaeological dig there. And one of the staffers said, "Hey, how about covering some good news? They found a musket." So I went, good, a musket ball. So I went over and I talked with them, and it's amazing what they're finding.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
The dig is ongoing. We're going to have one of the archaeologists among those come in to visit us in the studio.
It is pretty cool, the history we have in this city that I think a lot of us take for granted.
And the fact that they still uncovering more, they continue to uncover more about it. That part's amazing, too.
All right, thank you for listening to another edition of BPR on 89.7 GBH. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tune in tomorrow. Jim and Marjorie they're back at the BPL with the two lead actors in Broadway in Boston's production of Les Mis, Jean Valjean and Inspector Javert, plus the ACLU of Mass Carol Rose. A sports update from me, Trina Casey. Hello. We'll be speaking with Brown's Omar Bartov about his book, Israel, What Went Wrong. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez. Our stream team is Maddie Geyer and Bill Francis. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk. That comes up right after us on 89.7 GBH. The Culture Show coming your way with Jared Bowen starting at 2. I'm Trina Casey.
I'm Sue O'Connell.
Hope you have a great afternoon and can tune in again tomorrow.
I'm going to go rent some friends.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Harvard Museums of Science and Culture. 4 museums a short walk from Harvard Square, with exhibits ranging from stunning glass flowers to ancient Egyptian mummy cases. Learn more at hmsc.harvard.edu. And Compass on the Bay, an assisted living community in South Boston for those with Alzheimer's and related dementias, with research-based therapeutic programming for those with memory loss. More at compassonthebay.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, well, here on this show, we love a world record. And over in East Boston, what has been billed as the world's largest soccer ball just rolled into town, potentially shattering a standing record set by the good folks at Doha Bank in Qatar. Meanwhile, in Charlestown, city archaeologists are in the midst of a historic dig at the site of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which has its anniversary on Wednesday. We'll talk with one of the archaeologists, plus 2 descendants of patriots who fought in that historic battle. Plus, it was a first-of-its-kind automobile race from an era when we still called them automobiles. Only 3 cars competed in a race from New York to Seattle, which is an accomplishment in an era not just before GPS, but also your run-of-the-mill road map. Or road, really. We'll talk to the author this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump arrives at the G7 summit in France, buoyed by a new preliminary U.S. deal with Iran. After meeting with his host, French President Emmanuel Macron, Trump said the deal set to be signed this week would extend a ceasefire by 60 days in the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
The strait is already partially opened. As you know, they're doing a little hunting for a couple of mines that they've already found. But it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely opened.
However, the Memorandum of Understanding does not resolve several key issues, such as the fate of Iran's nuclear program. Trump says that was the main reason for launching the war and that Iran has fully agreed to not having a nuclear weapon. Iran is demanding an end to international sanctions and wants billions in overseas assets unfrozen. Qatar and Pakistan helped mediate the agreement. NPR's Dia Hadid reports Pakistan's prime minister says his country will facilitate meetings in the run-up to a signing ceremony in Switzerland Friday.
The Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said in a post on X that mediators would facilitate meetings this week. He described them as pre-implementation discussions that are expected to lay foundations for technical talks. The post was a reminder that while the US and Iran have agreed in principle to end their war, there's still multiple disagreements that must be resolved. The war began in late February after the US and Israel struck Iran. Neighbouring Pakistan has been leading mediation efforts to try resolve the conflict, tapping into its good relations with both Iran and the US. Dia Hadid, NPR News, Mumbai.
Well, with the announcement of an initial agreement, Brent crude prices are down nearly 4%. AAA, which have been watching prices surge since the disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, now reports national average for a gallon of regular gas is just over $4. A media giant is making major moves to reach more people on streaming. The Fox Corporation is buying Roku in a multi-billion-dollar deal. NPR's Kristen Wright has more.
Fox's CEO calls it a defining moment for the company. It proposes to buy Roku in a cash and stock deal valued at around $22 billion. The acquisition would bring together Fox's news, sports, and entertainment content with a major streaming platform with a vast audience. Fox would have access to Roku's 100 million households globally and the chance for more advertising dollars in the race to gain streaming audiences. It's a shift from Fox's reliance on traditional cable TV. Fox says its streaming service Tubi will operate separately alongside the Roku channel. The deal could close in the first half of next year. It still needs shareholder and regulatory approvals. Kristen Wright, NPR News.
This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Boston has lost a radio legend, Eddie Annelman, who was known as the godfather of sports radio and spent more than 40 years in Boston doing it, and much, much more, has died. Eddie created the Phantom Gourmet, later bequeathed it to his 3 sons. Also created the Hot Dog Safari, an all-you-could-eat hot dog event, with proceeds going to the Joey Fund to find a cure for cystic fibrosis. Annelman's career in radio began in 1969 on WUNR in Boston, where he hosted a show called The Sports Huddle. That show then moved to WBZ until 1971, and then it moved to WEEI, where it aired until 1976. Eddie was a true local legend, born in Dorchester, raised in Brookline, graduated from Brookline High. In 1954, went to BU, got his MBA at Northeastern. Eddie Annelman, dead at 89. The MBTA is holding a meeting later today to hear public feedback on proposed bus network redesign route changes. The T has been updating bus routes and schedules since 2024 and plans to do so through 2029. Some changes include doubling frequent bus routes for buses that arrive every 15 minutes or less. Tonight's meeting starts at 6 p.m. It's virtual, and you must register at the T website if you'd like to attend. World Cup action today, 4 games on tap. Red Sox off until tomorrow. We are looking at a sunny afternoon. Temperatures in the low 80s today. We're at 75 in Boston right now, 72 in Springfield. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, which monitors safe driving habits to determine a personalized rate at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Why don't you join us there? Well, it's official, everyone. The world's largest soccer ball is a 47-foot inflatable, certified by Guinness World Records, and it is just over the harbor from here in East Boston, secured by massive cables, decorated with the silhouettes of the world's continents. Soccer ball's pretty hard to miss. Here is a little bit of sound of some folks taking it in this past Friday when it arrived. This was captured by our producer, Nicole Garcia.
I'm glad to see any event come to Boston, especially events that bring people from around the world. I think it's really a plus for the city.
And we're all wishing everybody to have a great time that are coming from other countries.
Yeah. This is the best view of Boston from East Boston.
Yeah.
You get the skyline.
And actually, the pictures of this ball just without anybody in it and the view is amazing.
Well, it beats a previous record held by Doha Bank in Qatar, set back in 2013. It beats it by over 6 feet, which is one entire Jim Browdy length. You can find it at Pierce Park until June 18th. It's part of the city's effort, of course, to build excitement around the World Cup. For more, we've got Massport's Chief Marketing Officer John Raferty over Zoom. John, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you for having me.
So was this your idea? I mean, who conceived of this idea of let's break the world record for the world's largest soccer ball?
Well, it all started with the World Cup coming to Boston, and our CEO, Rich Davey, asked my team, he said, I want a big idea. I want to do something really impactful for the city of Boston that's going to welcome people to Logan Airport and to the region. And he said, come back to me with some ideas. And we came back with the idea of building the world's largest soccer ball. And he said, go for it. So, that led us down the path of sort of building this ball and creating it. It all started with the idea of just sort of, we had to build a small ball and figure out how the design of a small ball would then scale up to the design of a ball that's like 46 feet tall. Yeah. So yeah. That's how it started.
Was it like as it became clear how much work it was going to be to work out the construction of this, and I'd love to hear about the logistics of getting it here. But at some point in that process, were you like, oh dear God, what have I done? What have I suggested?
No, I feel like I've in the past I've worked on sort of large scale projects, and I have a team of designers and art directors and creatives who've all worked on sort of big ideas. This one was a big one because you are, kind of trying to break a world record. And there's obviously a lot at stake because if you get there and you don't break the world record, we all have egg on our face. Yeah. So there was a lot of pressure to sort of get it right. And so I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it does. But so how did you... how did you get it to the spot? I mean, did you inflate it and then bring it? Do you bring it then inflate it? How do you make sure that it's secured? Like, what did it take to actually get it on display in Pierce Park?
Oh, sure. So we started with like I said before, the design of the smaller ball, then worked, to afford a large scale ball, which was initially going to be 45 feet tall. And we worked with partners actually in Ohio who specialize in building these large structures. They're called creative inflatables. And then the idea was we work with them on sort of laying the whole ball out. And it's complicated because Guinness has like all these standards that you have to do. It has to match a FIFA regulated soccer ball, exactly. So when you design the original small one, it has to scale up. And then the production of the larger ball has to be very specific and exact to the small ball. So we built the larger ball, and then we went to Ohio, and I finally got to see the ball like on display at 48 feet tall, or almost 48 feet tall, and it was enormous. And then surveyors and Guinness World Record adjudicators came on site, and they measured and they surveyed. It was like a 6-hour process, and then we had to have cameras rolling the entire time to verify, that all of the information that we were recording and capturing was accurate. We also had to get witnesses on standby there the whole time to witness the whole process.
This is incredible. I love how seriously Guinness takes this.
Oh my God, so serious. They really do.
You're listening to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Massport's Chief Marketing Officer, John Raferty, about the world's largest soccer ball, which is right now, right here in Boston. Well, how's the response been? And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit broadly. I mean, like, obviously, as you said, like the World Cup's a big deal, and you were asked to do something big to celebrate the World Cup. We're essentially through the first weekend of it. Just how's it been so far? And are people excited about the ball, but also the World Cup?
Yeah, we've gotten an overwhelming sort of response to the ball being here. We had a community event over the weekend in East Boston. Well, we actually had a press event on Friday, the 12th, and we had the mayor here. We had local electeds. Our CEO kind of opened up the entire festivities, and we had so much press. And, in my time here, I haven't seen as much press around something on a global nature that we've done. So it's super exciting. And then on a local level, where we're kind of had our event in the community gets to enjoy it. We had vendors there doing face painting. We had activities for kids, soccer-related games, food, vendors. Yeah, it was just a really, really warm, welcoming kind of like international event with people from all walks of life coming to see the ball. And then I was there on Sunday, after the event. I brought my parents so they could see it. And, they're both 85 years old and they haven't seen anything like that before. And the park was still bustling with people. And I actually had sort of the original soccer ball in my hand that the big ball design was made out of. And after I took a picture with my parents, I had a line of 60 people behind me trying to they wanted pictures with the little ball, so they could take it with the big ball in the background. So there's tons of excitement and even the energy at Massport. We had so many teams working on this, from security, capital programs, media relations. Everybody kind of got to work on this, and it just kind of energized everybody. So it's been very positive all around.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Massport Chief Marketing Officer John Raferty. What's going to happen with the ball? It's up until the 18th. Is that it? So it's not going to be up through the whole of the World Cup. It's up for just a couple days. So, message to you out there, if you're hearing this and you're interested in seeing this ball, do not hesitate. But then what's going to happen to it?
So the ball will get deflated, and then it gets returned back to Creative Inflatables in Ohio, and then we're going to recycle the materials. So we are going to we're working with them to figure out what we're going to create. Our sponsors, HNTB and Suffolk, wanted the cutout of where their logos were so they could do plaques in their lobbies to kind of talk about this momentous occasion. We'll keep the Massport logo, and then the rest of the ball will probably be made into totes or patches, that have, sort of the specs of the ball on it and the date that we broke the world record. So it's all going to be recycled.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe possibly somebody down the line might be able to get their hands on a memento of this one way or another.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Massport is obviously, at Massport, you do more than just have giant soccer balls, to celebrate the World Cup. And the World Cup, as you pointed out, it's a big international affair, which means a lot of people have been traveling to Boston. Some of them have come and gone already. Some have come and stayed. There are more coming. How are things at Logan Airport? How are we handling things as we see a lot of visitors coming to and fro?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have sort of, we think about this a lot because Logan Airport is really the front door to Massachusetts. And for many visitors, the millions of passengers that are going to be coming through the airport, the first impression starts with Logan Airport. So we worked with FIFA, Boston 26, the local chapter that helped us kind of activate everything to brand the airport and all our screens with welcoming messaging. And then we did airport improvements, from renovating our restrooms to adding new wayfinding signage and expanding customer service resources. And then we have customer reps that speak over 20 languages, customer service reps. And then they also have, we have a team deployed of 50 people that don't work in the airport normally from, the corporate headquarters here. And we are using translation technology that can assist in more than 40 languages. So our goal is to sort of just make the experience of people coming to Boston and through our airport as seamless as possible and giving them that first great impression of Boston and what a great city we are.
And so far, so good? Things have been smooth?
It's been amazing. Yeah, if you come through the airport, you'll see brand ambassadors, and these are the people I talked about, the volunteers. They're all wearing soccer jerseys that are designed in-house by us that match the design of the ball, but also have patches on them. And you see one of those people, any of our customer service or anybody at the airport, we're all prepared to kind of help out, answer questions, and make the process as seamless as possible.
How about for you personally? Are you a soccer fan, kind of prior to this, or are you just like sort of a Boston fan and it's a big Boston event, so you're excited?
I'm a Boston fan. I am a soccer fan. My mother and her family are from Scotland, so I obviously was rooting for the Scottish team.
Oh, big day for Scotland.
Oh my God, it was amazing. And just seeing, once again, I think everybody was really nervous about like people coming and the city's not prepared. And I just think this weekend is proof that we are prepared, and this event went off, like, I think better than anybody expected. And the energy, enthusiasm, and excitement. And, for me, just seeing, Scotland represented in such a great way was awesome. I mean, the parades and, while I was at the ball on Saturday, we had our community event and there's like this boat that comes by, and it's filled with Scots people in kilts singing, and I'm like, this is insane.
No
It's
Scotland,
just
no party. That's what they say. That's what they've been
Yes,
chanting. I mean, it's been, if you were anywhere, it feels to me like anywhere in the city or around the city this weekend, it was pretty tough to miss the fact that there was a big Scottish presence in town.
Yes. So it was great. And if this is any indication how the rest of it's going to go, I think it's just beyond exciting for Boston. I'm really excited. So, so I'm thrilled, and I'm really happy that, obviously relieved that, the ball went up without a hitch, and God willing, it will continue that way. I'm really happy for the event and for the community. I'm really happy for everybody at Boston Logan that kind of joined together to kind of make this all happen, and our partners, Suffolk Construction and HNTB. So I'm at a moment right now, I'm on a soccer high. So
Awesome.
May this continue.
All right. Well, the festivities around the World Cup continue for a few weeks, but if you want to catch a glimpse of that soccer ball, you've only got a few days. We've been speaking with Massport Chief Marketing Officer John Raferty. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
After a quick break, it's been a busy couple weeks over in Charlestown, too. An archaeological dig at the site of the Battle of Bunker Hill. There's been parades, reenactments. So what happens when an archaeologist, a battle descendant, and a historical society president walk into a radio studio? We're going to find out next. It's the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Stay with us.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, as America prepares to mark 250 years, one of the country's most prominent voices on race and democracy says the celebration comes with a reckoning. In America, USA, Princeton professor and New York Times bestselling author Eddie S. Glaude Jr. looks at how the nation has used its landmark anniversaries to defend a story of freedom while leaving out the people and histories that challenge it. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, helping professionals stay competitive with 2 to 3 day courses on AI essentials, strategic leadership, and more. Details at executive.mit.edu. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, committed to simplifying college planning for families over 45 years with trusted guidance, interactive tools, step-by-step videos, and more. MEFA.org.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. And if you can, check us out there right now because we've got some cool visual aids in this next segment. Not content with the existing trove of Revolutionary Era artifacts and historical treasures, the city of Boston is currently knee-deep in its own history-making archaeological dig at the site of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which is, of course, not Bunker Hill, but that's okay. And that is just one aspect of a whirlwind couple of weeks for Charlestown history nerds. This is your time, Charlestown history nerds, and we haven't even gotten to the 4th of July yet. So we've got 3 people for this party with us in studio right now. First is Julie Hall, president of the board of the Charlestown Historical Society. She joins with Boston City Project archaeologist Lauryn Sharp, who's been helping with the dig. And we have Joni Parker Roach, a descendant of Benjamin Parker, who fought in the Battle of Bunker Hill 251 years ago this Wednesday. By the way, check out The Legacy of the Battle of Bunker Hill. That is an in-person event tomorrow. at the Bunker Hill Museum with a bunch of descendants, authors, archaeologists, plenty of history pieces. You can go to gbh.org events for more info. Okay, Julie, Lauren, Joni, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thanks for having us.
Julie, I'm going to start with you and the incredible visual that is in front of us if you're watching on the stream. So tell us about this musket that you have brought in with you
Pretty
today.
fantastic,
It's
right?
unbelievable.
I was a little worried about getting through security carrying the musket, but we were okay.
Good.
So the Charlestown Historical Society started researching the men and boys who fought in the battle that had not been talked about. You know, we always hear about, most people don't even know about Dr. Joseph Warren and William Prescott. We do, of course. But we started research 2 years ago and found these untold stories. And we said, you know what? Let's reach out to other historical societies throughout New England and find maybe people who are descendants. And this was last year for our 250.
Right. So it should be said, right? There's a lot of 250 stuff happening now. But of course, the
Yes.
Battle of Bunker Hill happened prior to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So you've done the 250 thing already. But
Hearing-
251 is also a big deal.
Much more big than we thought it was going to be, to be honest. We
interesting.
thought it was one and done last year.
Yeah.
The descendants, though, were just so incredible, and they brought with them last year of family ephemera, stories, oral histories, and we had to do it again. And we kept getting more and more descendants. So the Brothers of the Battle program, these descendants, like Joni, just descended upon Boston, Charlestown to tell their stories and share the oral histories. And it's just been fantastic. I mean, and it's really special because these men and boys have never been talked about, right?
Yeah.
They were lost to history. And when you think about it, they were farmers, they were blacksmiths, and they marched to fight what was then the most powerful army on the planet.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. And Joni's fifth great grandfather was one of those men. And that story's been a part of her family legacy for centuries.
Well, you've teed me up. Joni, tell us about your fifth great grandfather.
Well, Benjamin Parker, who lived at that time in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, but now the house was in Lowell because it's split up between Lowell, Chelmsford, and Westford. He happened to be at the battle. He was next to a gentleman by the name of Asa Pollard, who was the first unfortunate person who was killed at the Battle
Right.
of Bunker Hill. And my ancestor, Ben, as one does, picked up his musket, continued on, and very thankfully for all of us, survived that battle.
Wow.
And took the musket home. The family home was in the family from the mid-1600s till 1981, when, so it just kept acquiring more and more things. For that, this musket was one. My grandfather was a big collector, and gun collection was one of them. Civil War, Revolution, nothing modern.
Nothing modern.
Nothing
Just to
modern.
be clear, old
Absolutely, old guns. Nothing that shot, except for the Civil War mini cannon that he would shoot off sometimes on 4th of July. But anyway, fast forward, the house was sold in 1981, and my father, Arthur Benjamin Parker Jr., acquired some of the few things that were left, unfortunately. And then it came to me. And my sister Christina and I and our cousins felt very strongly that this musket belonged to the Bunker Hill Museum.
Wow.
It should not be in a private collection.
Yeah.
It should be in public. As more and more things that we find, we will look to donate to these places. Last year, I come from Groton, Massachusetts, which is also the home of Colonel William Prescott. He led the Minutemen at that Battle of Bunker Hill, so there's a connection 251 years ago. And now with me bringing it from Groton back to Bunker Hill, I love that connection over the years. We had a lovely author by the name of Don Ryan who just wrote a book on Colonel William Prescott. He came out for the 250th to speak to Groton. And I went up to him and I said, have you ever heard of a man by the name of Asa Pollard? Because to me, that was our family
It's part
lore.
of family lore.
Exactly.
Yeah, so was it like this in your family? You would hear this story over and over. Big
amongst...
point of pride for your family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And felt very, very proud and very honored.
Sure.
So he said, well, of course I've heard of him.
He's like, who do you think I am?
I know. And I said, well, I have his musket. And his eyes got huge. And I said, my sister Chris and I would like to donate it, find the correct home to be in public for our future descendants and the public going forward to be able to see. He said, well, I know exactly who to hook you up with. And he connected us to dear Julie, and she's been nothing but fabulous to us. We feel so honored to be working with her to bring this back. And we brought it in on April 14th. I love a little side story of me driving it from Groton up 495.
Yeah, were you a little bit nervous?
No, not at all.
Okay.
There's also 2 other muskets that we don't know why. We knew why this one.
Yeah.
But the other 2 are Revolutionary War era, but we haven't figured out yet, maybe in all the documents that we're going through.
Oh, got it. So you're not 100% sure where these other 2 were from, but we do sort of reasonably know or assume this one was.
This is the
certainly
one. This
at
is
the Battle of
Aces.
Bunker. Unbelievable.
Exactly.
The lock, and Lauren can talk about what's in here. We didn't even notice was there. The flint, because she was finding it all over.
Yeah, so let's turn things over to Lauren, because this is just one of the many items I assume that you have been sifting through. You're part of this archaeological dig going on. I mean, how long have you been sort of watering at the mouth to get at this site?
So many years, honestly. Yeah, we have been
it's
been probably about 3 years in the making to do all the research. And, we did a big initiative last year for the actual town of Charlestown, which burned to the ground on the day of the Battle of Bunker Hill. But this year was, our opportunity to be able to go out and actually do those excavations and try to actually identify where that redoubt was, or the fortification that was up there for the Battle
What's
of Bunker Hill.
What's a redoubt?
So it's an earthwork fort that just kind of has like a high point in the center for people to have like kind of the high point over their enemy or whoever's coming up to attack them. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've been finding lots of artifacts related to the actual battle. So we found the actual ditch it's an earthwork fort. So they would have dug a ditch, and now that we know we know the dimensions of how far down it was. So it's about a 3-foot ditch down, and then they would have piled up the dirt from that excavation up into a 6-foot wall, essentially, or a berm, and would have been fighting behind that. So all of the stuff that was found in the ditch, we've been finding ammunition, so gun flints, which is what Julie was referencing. Inside of the gun, there is a gun flint in there. From the same time.
Yeah, so Julie's she's holding up the musket now, and I can see we were talking about this sort of.
We never noticed it before.
Oh, wow.
Until Lauren put it in my hand.
That's been sitting in there
for a couple
hundred years now?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it looks almost identical.
Has anybody tried to fire this? Like, would this
No.
fire off?
Apparently, it still could fire. Yeah, but we're not going to test
Oh,
it.
no, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's leave it where it's been. Well, Julie, I mean, your time with the Charlestown Historical Site, have you ever seen anything like what it's been like the last couple of years?
Oh gosh, no. I mean, it's been so much fun and so rewarding to see the interest in Charlestown. The big hooplas always happens in around July 4th in Philadelphia, and we always like to say, the papers were signed there, but the blood was shed here. So,
very good.
Yeah.
So speaking of the archaeological dig, let's go back to that. I mean, you sort of mentioned some of the stuff that you're finding, but I sort of find it fascinating that, something, it's fairly well documented as this battle was, and it, obviously something has happened a long time ago. There's been no shortage of research and literature done into the American Revolution. As we all know, it is well-covered territory, and yet here you are, like, uncovering stuff that is giving you new information and new understanding about what exactly happened that day, which is wild.
Right, it really is. It's the first time it's been seen in 251 years, and obviously, again, like, the site we've known that the redoubt was up there and the fortification was up there at the time of the Battle of Bunker Hill, but so quickly after the fact, people were commemorating it and putting up the monument there, so there wasn't too many, archaeological investigations into it at all. So, this is all just, like, brand new information, and we're so proud to be able to, again, after 251 years of the story being told over and over, to be able to kind of add something new in, like, the specific location of the redoubt for the future.
Is it any different than any other sort of archaeological dig that you've been on, whether it's just because it's high profile or something about the landscape that makes it particularly different or challenging?
Yeah, kind of both. So obviously we've been getting a lot of, people coming up and just asking, especially with the World Cup right now, we're getting people from all over the world essentially seeing these archaeological investigations interacting with the materials and things. But also obviously, again, because the land that the monument is on and where the readout was has been kind of manicured, and it's obviously a federal park right now. So it's been very well preserved. So it's been really nice for us to be able to dig into it and be able to see what's down there. And like obviously the land is really nice to be able to dig into. So it's just been like a real treat for me. The best dirt that I've seen in Boston, honestly, on any dig that I've been on. So yeah.
Are there things kind of on the list that you are either expecting to find or hoping to find that you have not found yet?
So probably no. So we have 2 trenches open currently, and we did expect to find. So we are looking for that ditch for the readout, and something that we weren't expecting to find were ammunition related artifacts. So obviously there's documentation of people coming the day of the battle and the day after the battle and picking up things as mementos, as people do. So we weren't really expecting to find anything related to the actual battle itself. So finding those gun flints, and we had several musket balls come up as well. So that was a very exciting find for us to be able to say this is a real tangible connection to, the history of the Battle of Bunker Hill. And then we had another trench open that I should have mentioned. We did a big ground penetrating radar survey last year, which kind of identified these 2 locations.
Ground penetrating radar survey.
Yes. It's basically a very big...
Sounds cool.
Yes, a fancy box that you drag across the ground that sends signals into the ground that will come back with soil density changes. And those are kind of where we were getting really good results, like angular features down about 4 feet down in the ground. So we kind of had target locations to be able to dig in. And so that one where we ended up finding the ditch for the readout was one of those target locations, and we were expecting to find that. But in the other one, we were getting a lot more material culture. So we didn't find the actual features in the ground that we were expecting to find, but we were finding lots of material that wasn't something that we were expecting to find, like lots of personal adornment. There was a wig curler. There were
wig curler?
So
that's
you think of like very powdered wigs and
But it's wild because like that's the kind of stuff though, right? Isn't it that kind of unexpected thing when it's found that just like it sort of shocks you into
makes
the
it real.
realization
Yes. It
that
makes
like
it real.
these are
The
just
real
like, they're just like
individual
it's just like
experience,
they're people like us.
Yeah. Fancy
Wild.
pants
Yes,
trench, we
exactly.
called it.
Yes.
That trench, cufflinks, buttons,
Yeah.
and the wig curler.
Yes, very fancy.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Julie Hall, archaeologist Lauryn Sharp, and Bunker Hill battle descendant Joni Parker Roach. Joni, I want to talk a little bit more about this being a descendant of somebody who was in this battle, but also this effort on the part of the museum to bring you together. I mean, has that been an interesting experience? Have you met some of these other people who are descendants of folks who were involved in that battle? And is there a kinship that's been forming?
It's become truly family. I mean, when we brought the musket in that day on April 14th of this year to meet Julie finally, and there was a group of people there that were there to greet us. Well, greet the muskets, I should say. It wasn't.
You too.
You were there too, but the muskets.
It's the muskets that are the stars, especially this one. Christina and I felt it's so important to have these things here, and the people that were coming up saying, "Oh, I'm a cousin of yours. I'm a Parker cousin." Then I said, "Well, actually, our ancestry goes back to the Mayflower, to the Brewster and Howland families." And another lady said, "Oh, I'm a Howland, so we're cousins." I mean, it's just they've been coming out of the woodwork and finding these people. And I think it's going to move way past this 251st anniversary for Massachusetts. Thank you very much. It's 251. I'm very proud of that. We will definitely keep in touch. I will definitely plan to march again in that parade next year. I'm about to have my first grandson, who's the newest Parker descendant, who will be born.
Congratulations!
Thank
by the
you.
way.
We're
That's
very
so
excited. It's a
exciting.
little boy, and he will be born next month. So his mama wasn't there, but his dad was, and so I was very proud yesterday.
Wait, next month he's not coming on the 4th of July, is he?
He's due on the 15th, so it's
I mean,
very
it is conceivable.
And his mother thinks he's coming well before that. So we'll see. But it was wonderful to have my son Dylan there to be able to carry the musket through most of yesterday, and have him. Then maybe the little one will be there in the next parade next year.
Tiny little sash.
With a tiny little descendant sash. So to answer your question, it's very important. Chris and I grew up, and our cousins, in that original house that was filled with antiques and historical documents and ephemera, as you say, that we had. So it's now to be able to share that with other descendants and other family members is really powerful and humbling, extremely humbling for us.
Julie, I'm going to turn to you because you have more stuff with you here. So if you're watching us on the YouTube stream, you can get a gander at this. But what I'm seeing here looks to be a lot of like handwritten. What are these letters? Scraps
of paper.
Where do these all come from?
Joni and Christina.
Wow.
They brought all of this with them, and we're right now looking to have all of this digitized. This was one of the biggest challenges or opportunities, I'd say, last year.
That's the way to look at it.
That's the way to look at it. You know, you're seeing the things that people are bringing, and we're capturing these stories on my iPhone. That's not a good idea. So this year we got a very generous grant from the Joan Schneider Charitable Trust, and she was able to give us the money to record it for real. So we had a fabulous camera crew down there on Saturday capturing their stories. We're going to get this stuff digitized so that it lives forever and other people will be able to see it.
That's really, I mean, why has this effort been so, I mean, it sounds like it's been incredible, like the response, but yet it's a big effort to do this. What is it about this in particular that is driving you to say, like, no, there are stories out there of people that we don't know yet that were involved in this monumental moment in American history. Like, why have you been at this like this?
So I believe Bunker Hill is really special. I have been sitting in that office in the Bunker Hill Museum overlooking the monument for 7 years.
Yeah.
And tourists from all over the world come in, they poke their head in to see, what we're doing. Sometimes they're wearing a Make America Great Again hat. Sometimes they're wearing a Feel the Burn Bernie Sanders shirt. But the one thing they all agree on is what that monument stands for.
Yeah.
And that's really special. That's something in these divisive times that, that everybody can agree that what happened there is what this country is really about.
Real quick before we let you go, what's going to happen tomorrow at the Legacy of the Battle of Bunker Hill? What's going on at that event? Why might people want to sort of amble over there and be a part of it?
Well, we have a lot of stuff going on the next couple of days.
So tell us about all of it real quick. Here we go.
Yeah. So Wednesday is the actual 251st anniversary of the battle. And every year, this is the solemn part. Yesterday was the big hoopla with the parade. But Wednesday, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Sons of the American Revolution, our descendants, the militia all go to church. We do an ecumenical service. The mayor's there. We march through the city. We put wreaths on the Bunker Hill Cemetery and then up at William Prescott's statue. This year, we're super excited that one of the trenches is going to be open.
Cool.
Nice. Very well protected, but open. Behind the...
You have to say it, right?
Yep.
Right behind the tent, which is fantastic because we'll be able to actually point to this really happened, and so we're really excited about it.
Excellent. Lauryn, how long does the dig go on for, and how are we going to know if you find something else really super cool?
Yeah, so the dig is going to go on for the next day or so. So we are going to have that feature open on Wednesday for people to see. We probably won't be doing active excavation at that point. So it'll wrap up this week, but we will have those open for people to see. And then also if you go to our social media, so at Boston Archaeology, so any of the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, etc. We will post most of our archaeological finds on there, as well as features that we find in the ground, so people are able to see them without actually having to come out. But please do come out.
We've been speaking with Julie Hall, president of the board of the Charlestown Historical Society, Boston project archaeologist Lauryn Sharp, and Bunker Hill battle descendant Joni Parker Roach. Thank you all for being with us today here on the Curiosity.
Thank you so much for
If you want more from these three, there's that event tomorrow night, Bunker Hill Museum, in partnership with our colleagues here at GBH. It is called The Legacy of the Battle of Bunker Hill. For more information, gbh.org/events. After a quick break, on the plus side, in 1909, there was barely any traffic on the roads. The downside, there were barely any roads. So what happened when 5 cars raced from New York to Seattle? A lot. We will hear about it next. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. This is the Curiosity Desk. Stay with us.
Learn something new.
I want to start with how crowds of people can act like fluids.
Yes.
What?
I mean, this is physics, so I love it.
Make a connection.
I have no idea who they voted for. I don't care. This tailgate in particular, everybody's welcome.
Dig a bit deeper.
We're often looking for a small secular liturgy for our lives, and poetry can provide that sometimes.
Stay curious with All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, proud sponsor of Marketplace Morning Report, weekday mornings on GBH 89.7. What matters to you? And Middlebury College in Middlebury, Vermont, dedicated to educating thoughtful, ethical, and globally informed leaders in the liberal arts, preparing them to address the world's most challenging problems. More at middlebury.edu.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, in 1909, to drum up a little excitement for the horseless carriage and to promote the upcoming World's Fair in Seattle, fair organizers convinced a Playboy millionaire from New York to sponsor an automobile race from the East Coast to the West. Now, this is at a time when only 1 out of about every 500 Americans had a car. That race, with all of its mishaps and subterfuge, is the focus of a deeply researched and totally fun read for your next summer road trip. And no, you do not have to be a motorhead to enjoy this one. Is it about cars? Sure, kind of. But it's also about the dawn of a new era in America, our country's relationship with technology, and cutthroat corporate competition in the marketplace and the press. Conclusion? It always pays to cheat. I kid, but only sort of. The book is The Hardest, Longest Race, Henry Ford, and the Cross-Country Contest That Changed America. Its author is Eric Moskowitz, staff writer at Harvard, former reporter for the Boston Globe, where he was, of course, on that team that won the Pulitzer for their coverage of the 2013 marathon bombing. Eric, thanks so much for being with us here on the Curiosity Desk.
Oh, my pleasure, Edgar. I'm such a fan of the show, and that was just like
thanks.
the most generous introduction for the book. So
Hey,
thank you.
all right. We try. So take us into 1909 because, on the one hand, I guess people would sort of look back and generally be like, yeah, it was probably harder to get across the country than in a car. But it was kind of a nutty idea, right?
Oh, I mean, this is still a time when most people have a car using it for recreation. I mean, it was sort of vigorous, quote unquote, exercise to get into your car, probably with your chauffeur, go out, have an adventure in the country, meaning 10 or 20 miles from the city at most, and then come back. If you're going further than that, I mean, that is a really intrepid adventure. And there had been, there's a bicycle boom in the 1880s, 1890s. You get some, a good road movement out of that. But there's outside of the cities, there's nothing really that we would recognize as a road today. And particularly when you got west of St. Louis, I mean, you're going over old wagon trails from the pioneers, or just sort of cutting across farm fields.
And what is the technology of the cars like at this point? I mean, it's obviously not a modern car, but how rustic are they?
It's a great question. I mean, I'm a parent of an almost 7-year-old, almost 10-year-old, and another 7-year-old I know picked up the book the other day and looked at the cover and says, "That's not a car." I mean, I think people have a conception of old cars being maybe something that Al Capone drove around in, and these are really, I mean, they basically look like ride-on lawnmowers. I mean, you have a series of large luxury cars in the race, but even a luxury car then is mostly open air. I mean, you could buy a limousine with a top, but going in this race, I mean, there's no windshields, certainly no seatbelts. These are very stripped down. And then the Model Ts, and so this race is really the story of Ford finally, as he sees it, cracking the code of a lightweight, affordable car that is also durable, putting it into a race against big luxury cars that cost several times as much. And those cars, I mean, it really looks like, to the modern eye, like a ride-on lawnmower.
Yeah. And one of the cars that is involved in this race, and we talk about it a little more, but I want to make sure we get into this, is a locally made car right here, which is actually how you got on this story. This is the very small thread that connects you to this.
Exactly. So, so the sort of underdog, in some ways the protagonist in this story, is the car and the crew of the Shawmut Motor Company. And this is a small automaker in Stoneham, made an unusually fine car. They were sort of obsessively committed to kind of perfection. And then the factory burns down in the fall of 1908. Right as they're getting out of the gate, they've gotten some good press, but they're basically finished. And so they're looking for a place to find a new factory that they can reopen, and they need publicity to get the capital to start over. And they hear about this race, and it's basically like a Hail Mary pass. Like, if we win this cross-country race, we'll be saved.
Yeah.
Of course, Ford cheats to win. They get sort of sharp-elbowed out of the way and fade into history. But I found out about this by chance. I mean, I had started out in the Globe in a suburban bureau.
Like a good reporter does.
Right. Like, you never know what you're going to find, like, tacked up to a post or at a meeting agenda. I was on a Stoneham listserv because I'd written about a budget crisis in Stoneham in 2007.
Yeah.
Never opened this listserv after those stories. 2009, one day I'm at my desk in the newsroom at the Globe, and I see the latest select board agenda, and I'm like, well, I'll open it. Maybe they're arguing about something in Stoneham that will be, like, of interest, even if you live in the western suburbs or the South Shore. And scroll through, and it's just like municipal news. And then at the bottom, I see there's a proclamation for the forgotten Shawmut Motor Company, pride of Stoneham and the rightful winner of the 1909 ocean-to-ocean race for the Guggenheim Cup. And I was like, what now?
What are any of those words?
First of all, and they, and I grew up here. I'm into New England history. I knew about whaling. I knew about textiles. I knew about, shoemaking. I had no idea they were ever making cars.
Yeah.
And I started to probe, and I got to write like 1,500 words on the 100th anniversary. And there was a group of Model T enthusiasts who were driving cross country to retrace the route from New York City to the World's Fair. It's not a World's Fair in 2009,
now,
but it becomes the University of Washington campus in Seattle. They're retracing the route, and they had extended an olive branch to Stoneham at that time. So that was kind of what put it on the select board's map. Wrote a story for the Globe. It stayed with me as like something to come back to, and then have to give a lot of credit to my agent, Wendy Strothman, who drew it out of me in 2016.
That's awesome. You're listening to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking with author Eric Moskowitz about his book, The Hardest, Longest Race. We'll get into the fact that Ford cheated in a second, because I think that's an important thing to talk about. But just like a lot of people didn't think these cars were even going to make it. Can you give us a sense of like what the challenge was getting across the country?
So people may be familiar with like Horatio's Drive, the first trip cross country in 1903. 1909, you can still count on like two sets of hands how many people have successfully gone cross country in a car. It is a real journey, and they are really only doing it between New York and California. No one is going to the Pacific Northwest because you have to cross the Cascades, and that is like insane.
Yeah.
But you have a World's Fair in Seattle, so they feel like, well, we've got to do it. They send a really well-known car called the Thomas Flyer on a Pathfinder journey in the spring of 2009. So this race happens in June. So we're like sitting right in the middle of the anniversary right now. They send this car on this Pathfinder journey to chart the course, and it just runs into like you can't make this stuff up. It like gets swallowed up by a sinkhole. Like a sheep herder fires at it, pierces it with a bullet, supposedly aiming for a coyote. They bed down. I mean, they're not like motor lodges. They bed down in a locomotive roundhouse, and a whole bunch of tramps that was their place to sleep, basically sort of attack the crew, drive them out. And they finally get to the Cascades, and it is May, and they've got to cross a place known as Snoqualmie Pass, and it is like 10 feet of snow even in May, and they end up going over by railroad. So there were 250 automakers in the country at this time. They hear about this, and they're like, okay, we want no part of this. I mean, bad publicity in a crowded market is like worse than no publicity.
So Ford, the Model T wins the race ultimately.
Yeah, in quotes, I would say.
Yeah. But cheated. Like in what way? Like what kind of cheating are we talking about?
Yeah. So first of all, they had a lot of built-in advantages, which like the moment the race starts, the other cars in the race are like, wait, what now? And this is all within the rules. But Ford has the beginnings of a national dealership network, like 800 or so dealers scattered across the country. Many of these are not like dealers we'd recognize today. I mean, it's like a local hardware store merchant or a small town doctor selling a few Fords on the side, taking a horse as a trade-in. But like, they're ready and they're waiting.
Wait, did you say taking a horse?
Exactly.
As a
you can get $100 trade-in for a good horse.
Right. Sort of flew right past me. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. We've all traded in. I mean, I traded in an ancient Subaru and got like $1,000 for it last year. But like, if you had a good horse, you could trade it in for a
horse. Yeah, there you
go. But yes, this is the world of 1908, 1909. But it means that there are people waiting to show these Fords the way when there's no Google Maps, there's no road signs, there's barely any roads, and these other companies are finding their way basically on an ad hoc basis. But then on top of that, it means you have a waiting network of people who are basically trying to like do anything they can to get these fords in first. So example, I mean, this is just like such a stark illustration. You couldn't get across Missouri going from St. Louis to Kansas City without crossing the Missouri River, which is very broad. I mean, a mile across many places. And you have to go through this like old port city of Glasgow, and there's no bridge there, and no auto bridge. So you would get to a ferry. And I don't mean for people to like picture the ferry to Martha's Vineyard. This is like a raft the size of this room with some wooden planking around it. You could pull one or maybe two cars and a few people onto it, and then it would putter across and then, come back. And so there are two fords in the race. They beat the other cars to the east side of this bank.
Yeah.
They cross over. Henry Ford is there. The Shawmut from Boston and then another car called the Acme from Pennsylvania pull up right on the heels. They're waiting for this ferry to turn around and come back for them. And they're just sitting there watching, and the ferry is just like tied up on the other side. And they investigate, and supposedly the propeller had broken immediately after landing with the Fords. And like, it just like defies belief that, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing happens in a bunch of places, and it makes the Shawmut car and crew feel like the race is not on the level. And I was really fortunate. So the Shawmut car from Stoneham, the mechanic on this race, a guy named Earl Chapin, who's 26, trying to save his job. He's going to miss his first anniversary with his wife, Anita, for this race, and he's deeply in love. So he is writing her at like every chance he gets, postcards, letters. I mean, this is like taking out a fountain pen in the thick of this these like crazy conditions, and the family saves them. And I was able to reach a grandson. He's Bruce Chapin. He's a sculptor in the Hudson Valley, and it was like, you reach out to people that have no idea what you're talking about. With Bruce, it was like, I have this like box of letters to share. I mean, like the hair stood up on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
And so that brings the story alive, and you can see like the deep frustration on the part of the Shawmut crew as they're getting stymied and thwarted. But the way that they end up really cheating is that you could not change major parts in the car. You could change things.
The rule of the
exactly.
Of the race
you could change things
that
are subject to wear and tear, brakes, clutch, things like that. But engine block you couldn't change. You have to repair it no matter how time consuming it is. Ford breaks down on the border of Wyoming and Idaho. And instead of doing like open heart surgery on the engine, they just take out the entire engine, pop in a new one.
So that's blatant.
Send the car on the road, and then they work on the repair, put it on a train, and then when they're done, plug that back in so that when it's inspected at the finish, it looks like the original engine.
How big of a deal, is winning this race for the Ford and the Model T, right? I mean, it's sort of the collective consciousness of America. People are like, the Model T, the car that changed everything for America. But like, was this a big piece of it? The fact that he won this race with this car?
I think it's a very big piece, and I think it's a much bigger piece than people have historically appreciated. I mean, it isn't as if so by the time Ford signs up for this race, the Model T is like 6 months old. He's sold a few thousand of them. It isn't as if the next year they're going to sell 1 million. I mean, eventually they will sell 15 million Model Ts by 1927. They'll drive the price down. They'll get much better at efficiency. But it's certainly like, this is a huge accelerant, and it's an underappreciated one because Ford, they advertise the heck out of this, but then they get caught 4 months later, right? It turns out Shawmut is the rightful winner, and they kind of go quiet at the corporate level. And so people looking at the corporate archives wouldn't see a lot of evidence, but so much has been digitized in the last like months, years, you name it, that if you look at newspaper archives, you can see well into 1910, small town dealers, medium-sized city dealers, they're in the daily newspaper day after day after day. You too can own an exact replica of the car, the Model T, that won the New York to Seattle race, the hardest, longest race ever run.
So they were using it as a marketing
absolutely,
technique.
And then and they had such a sense of publicity. Like there's a dealer in Washington who gets a great story. He shares it. It runs in auto columns across the country. A farmer calls up a local dealer, says, "Do you have that car that won the race from New York to Seattle last year?" The dealer comes out, takes the farmer for a test drive. He says, "Talk to the missus." He goes behind the barn, digs up $1,000 from the ground, buys the car on the spot.
Wow.
I mean, it's like
also digs up $1,000 from the ground.
It's
just like
incredible. And that like people, I mean, they were buying cars in cash back then.
That's awesome. What would you say? I mean, like you're somebody who you're a writer. You're also, as you point out, you're interested in history. But like, what do you feel like in the process of doing this book? What did you learn about the American story that you maybe feel like you didn't really know or realize before it?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, the fact that like this company that succeeds does so to cheat to win. I mean,
something
very American about that. What struck me looking back at this and feeling like these are primitive cars. This is a time when a long distance phone call was like 10 miles away and incredibly expensive. Was that in this moment in 1909, they felt like they were living in the like most modern era, the onrush of history. They talk constantly about like annihilation of distance. You could get cross country in 4 days by train. You could send a telegraph message. They felt like distances were shrinking, and the world had never been closer together, more rapidly increasing, improving, particularly if you're a middle-class consumer.
Yeah, that certainly resonates with our time in its own way. We've been speaking with author Eric Moskowitz. His latest book out now, The Hardest, Longest Race, Henry Ford and the Cross-Country Contest That Changed America. By the way, there are a bunch of talks, both in person and virtual, on this book with Eric. So if you want more, find out more information at ericmoskowitz.com. Eric, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm now joined by Jared Bowen. Jared, have you ever done car across the country?
I've done it several times, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's such a great experience. If people can afford themselves the luxury of time to do it, it's amazing.
Very cool. Very cool.
You no longer have to get gasoline from the barrel at the local hardware store.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's much more convenient.
I've always started mine by the national parks, which is also a great way to see the
very
national
cool.
parks. They're great waypoints.
Excellent stuff. Well, what do you have on the Culture Show today, Jared?
Antonia Bennett, who is a singer-songwriter, is here about her Father's Day concert at Regatta Bar. That's especially poignant for Father's Day because she is the daughter of the late Tony Bennett. So we'll talk about her latest album and the concerts that she's performing. Eddie Escalade Jr. is here to talk about his new book, America, USA, where this is such an interesting but very troubling concept, where not the concept but the information revealed, that he goes back and looks at the milestone moments in American history, the centennial, the bicentennial, the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, and where the U.S. has been in each of these moments.
Fascinating.
And it's very, very revelatory, especially as we look at Black Americans. And finally, we talked to Igor Goliak about their new show at Arlequin Players Theater. It's called Delirium. It's based on UNESCO's absurdist play about a couple having a trivial argument while the world outside is exploding. Does this sound a little bit familiar?
Well, it sounds like another great one from Jared Bowen and the Culture Show that's coming your way in about a minute and a half, so don't go anywhere. As for us, that about does it for now. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armania, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Patty Daniels and Jamie Bologna are our show's mechanics. Our engineers, John LeClaw Parker. Special thanks today to Bill Piacitelli and Maddie Geyer. We will be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. If you can't wait that long, we got a podcast version of the show. You can check it out wherever it is you check out your podcasts. Till next time, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Compass on the Bay, an assisted living community in South Boston dedicated to those with Alzheimer's and related dementias, featuring research-based therapeutic programming. More at compassonthebay.com. In the face of unimaginable horror, one man risked everything to save the lives of dozens of twins from heinous experiments in Auschwitz. Discover the story of this unsung hero and watch The Last Twins tonight at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Antonia Bennett, the singer-songwriter, brings a lifetime of American popular song to the stage. The daughter of Tony Bennett, she's made the standards her own, with a voice and career shaped by jazz, swing, and storytelling. She joins us ahead of her Father's Day concert at Regatta Bar. Then, as America prepares to mark 250 years, Princeton professor and New York Times bestselling author Eddie Escalade Jr. asks what the country is celebrating and what it still refuses to confront. His new book, America, USA, is a pointed examination of race, freedom, and the stories America continues to both deny and tell itself. And a relationship at war, a city in collapse, and a comedy that may feel a little too close to home. Director Igor Goliak joins us to talk about Delirium, his new take on UNESCO's absurdist vision of love, conflict, and catastrophe. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. You're listening to The Culture Show, and we're listening to Antonia Bennett.
No one to talk with, all by myself. No one to walk with, but I'm happy on the shelf. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you.
That's Ain't Misbehavin' off her 2025 album titled Expressions. On June 21st, you can have the full Antonia Bennett experience by way of her Father's Day concert at Regatta Bar in Cambridge. Antonia Bennett is the daughter of the late legend Tony Bennett and actress Sandra Grant Bennett. It allowed her a front row seat to American popular song, watching her father work, travel, and perform alongside many of the greatest singers and musicians of the 20th century. Bennett went on to study at Berklee College of Music here in Boston and built her own career as a singer of jazz, standards, and original song. Material she's performed on grand stages from Radio City Music Hall and the Hollywood Bowl to the Newport Jazz Festival and Royal Albert Hall. Antonia Bennett, welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Well, that new album, your voice is just so beautiful as you take us back through song, both from the American Songbook and what you've written. We'll talk about that. But tell me about finding your love of American Songbook.
Well, I don't know if I found it so much as it found, it kind of fell in my lap. I was surrounded by that, and I truly enjoyed it. And my dad and I had such a great relationship, and we had many things in common. And so we did a lot of things together that we both enjoyed, like going to museums or listening to great music.
So in what way did you realize that you could produce the music as well, or was it just always there for you?
Well, the first time I sang on stage, I could barely walk and talk. I think I learned backwards. I just never assumed that I couldn't do it. And I think as I got older, I realized how much I loved it, and that regardless of all the other things that I was doing, my parents did a really good job of exposing me to all the arts. That was the one thing that was steady for me always, that I always came back to. And so the more I learned, the more I just kept, my capacity just kept growing, and here I am. I'm still doing it.
Well, in terms of doing it, how did you form the collection that you've formed in your new album, Expressions?
So that was really a collaboration between myself and my pianist and arranger, Christian Jacob, who's incredibly talented. I think a lot of the songs I picked myself and also wrote, the originals, and I brought them to him and said, I want to do these songs that I wrote, and here are some standards that I'd like to do. And then I also asked him what he thought, and he chimed in and suggested tunes as well. And even his wife, Wilder, Jacob, she had recommended, for example, Hushabye Mountain, and I thought it was such a great fit.
Well, what do you find in yourself when you're going back to these songs? Because so many people, this may be some of the first introduction. I mean, there's the contemporary music out there today, which is so heavily present, but you're taking us in a different direction.
Well, my dad always said, if you're going to do something that everybody's done before, just find a way to do it your own way. And so many of these great artists from his generation did that. They would take a standard and make it their own, or in many cases, like a Carmen McRae would take even a more popular song and make it her own and still somehow make it into her style. And so there never was that boundary for me that I have to do it exactly the same. And I had an incredible arranger. I mean, Christian Jacob just, he's magical. So I'd give him the tunes and say, what do you think? How do you think we should do it? And, it was collaborative. And also because it was such a nice, small quartet, that the vibe was great between all of us, and it just all came together.
Well, let's go back to the album. And speaking of people who would make songs their own, you have a song on the album called Comes Love. People also know that by Ella Fitzgerald. Here's your version again from your 2025 album. Into that, especially having been around Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah, well, it's so lovely to be able to do it. I mean, it's such a great song, and there's a lot to give there.
But she was somebody you grew up. You mentioned, of course, we know your father had so many great friends and luminaries: Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald. You grew up with these people. I won't ask you what it was like because that's all you knew as the daughter of Tony Bennett.
Sure.
But what did you begin to understand about these other artists and how they thought and how you came to understand they performed?
I mean, I think I always knew, that they were special because also I grew up in Beverly Hills, and during that time there were a lot of amazing singers that lived there: Mel Torme, Ella Fitzgerald, Rosemary Clooney, Frank Sinatra, even Dean Martin. They were all there and around, and Sammy Kahn lived across the street from me, so they were in my life, and it was a normal thing to see them. I mean, I would go to school in the morning and see Fred Astaire walking to the post office. So that was, and I knew that these people were at the top of their game because we were in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills during the 1980s, and you would see that. I mean, there was a little ballet school that I used to take lessons at, and they were all the baby ballerinas so it was just that period of time in Los Angeles. There was a lot of incredible talent, and I think as I actually came to Berkeley, when I went to school here, and all of a sudden, people were talking all the time about Ella Fitzgerald, and I realized, oh wow, it's not just me that she's important to. Like, these people have never met her, and she's so important to them. And that was towards the end of her life. I remember calling from a payphone, to call her and say, oh, she was in the hospital, and I remember, calling her and saying, everybody here is talking about you. They're all studying your music.
How did that affect her when you shared that?
I think she liked it. Yeah. Bittersweet, she was not doing that great at that time, but I think she liked it, and she was always so generous and nice with me.
Well, speaking of appreciation, you performed so much with your father, as you said, from a very early age. What was it for you to see up close and personal and feel from the audience the appreciation for him on stage?
It was really special for me to see that through so many years, and people just really embraced him and loved him. And, towards the end, I mean, he would get a standing ovation every night. And he was really, I think, the greatest thing is like just how much he loved it, like how much he loved to get that love from the audience. It really kept him going. And I can relate to that because it's so nice to have appreciation for what you do, and he felt so grateful to be able to do it.
I'm speaking with Antonia Bennett about her latest album titled Expression. She'll also be performing a Father's Day concert this coming Sunday at Regatta Bar in Cambridge. Your father only passed away a few years ago, so what is the poignancy for you of doing this concert this particular Sunday?
Well, I mean, any opportunity I get to celebrate my father is a beautiful thing, and I'm just thrilled to be able to do it. And so many of the Father's Days that I had before I got to spend with him, and now I'm out there on the road doing it myself. And again, it's a little bittersweet, but I'm so happy to just be able to have the chance to remember and honor him.
I have one question just about Alzheimer's disease, which we know he had, and we've spent a fair amount of time on this show actually talking with Renee Fleming and others about the impact of music on the brain and how it gets into us. And how did you see your father's facility for music even after the diagnosis?
Honestly, he was very amazing. Like the music started, and he remembered all the songs, and sometimes he might sing a song twice in a row, but usually at that point nobody knew about the diagnosis, so I think they just liked that he was doing it, and they just were happy to have him sing again. Like, he was still so embraced, and even at the end his piano player was coming over to the house and running the whole show, so up until the end he was able to sing and really deliver even at the very end.
That's incredible. Well, looking forward, I know you have a daughter. You have a song on the album, Baby, that you wrote for your daughter. How would you describe your relationship? And I know she's young, but does she have musical inclinations too?
I think she does. I mean, I have her taking piano lessons, and she loves to sing. And if she wants to do that one day, I'll do everything I can to help her to facilitate her dreams, but she can do whatever she wants. I'll be happy as long as she's happy.
But significantly, you're not like many people who grow up in the industry who try to steer their children away from it. That's not your experience.
I would be happy if she chose something, if she wants to do, to be honest, but I certainly wouldn't deter her, because I know that, even my dad, he said to me, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's not the easiest life. You're on the road." I think, for your children, you always want something stable, and you really have to have the type of personality to deal with the ups and downs in the entertainment business. But there was nothing anybody could say to me to stop me. And I think he saw that in me, and he was like, okay, and I really think that that's a great way to be. You prepare your kids for life to the best of their ability, but then they make their own choices. So you have to, let them kind of come through you and not, be too overbearing.
What was it to be able to record a song for her and to write a song for her and then be able to share it with the world?
It was very special. Funny enough, when I wrote that song, I was at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco because I had been at Davies Symphony Hall the night before opening for my dad. And a great songwriter, Cliff Goldmacher, he is a friend, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be in town, but I've only got a couple hours," because he's a Nashville guy. So he was like, "I've got to go to Nashville, but I have a couple hours if you want to write something." I said, "Great." And my husband and my daughter were with me that trip. And my husband said, "Oh, I'm going to go get the car so that you can have some time to write." So I don't know where he went, but he didn't come back for a very long time. And my daughter was there bouncing around the room. And I said, "Well, why don't we try to, maybe if we write a lullaby, she'll calm down." She was only 2 at that time. And so, we started to write this song, and it came really quickly. It's one of, sometimes a song will take a long time to craft, and sometimes they just come really fast. And this was one that came really fast, and it didn't calm her down at all. But we got this great lullaby out of it. And I still sing it to her sometimes. Oh. Even now she's 10, she's probably too old for a lullaby song, but I still sing it to her, and she likes it.
Oh, that's so fabulous to hear. When it comes to songwriting and performing, do you have a preference? Is one more satisfying than the other?
I like both things. I like all things. For me, I really love to collaborate with people. So singing live is great because you get that instant. Sometimes when you're writing, especially if you're writing by yourself, it's a little long. I can find it hard to get things done. But when I'm writing with another person, I really like that. And I think I like all of the things. It's just like a different skill set, because when you're singing live, anything can happen and you have to just go with it. But when you're recording, you can go and fix things or learn as you go or whatever, so it's just a different thing.
When you, going back to what you said a moment ago about, or toward the beginning of this conversation, you sort of learned backwards about how to be on stage. When things go wrong or when you take the stage, do you feel like everybody you grew up with and your own father, is it all coming to the fore? Oh, I remember Ella Fitzgerald doing that or Frank Sinatra doing that. So when you're on stage, you have this whole arsenal of whatever it takes to be on stage. Things, exactly.
Yeah, I think... Gosh, I never really thought about it like that, but I probably do have a lot of those influences, let's say. But I think when you've been doing it for a long time, like when you first start out, you do copy people. And, the best thing is to just copy not one person, but like really listen to a lot of different people and try to imitate, because then if you listen to everybody and not just singers, but also instrumentalists, then you have all of this stuff. And then you finally, at a certain point, you just let it all go. And you just kind of throw it all away, like the Abbey Lincoln song. You throw it away. And then you just have yourself, and it takes time, but that's what happens. I'm sure that maybe somebody who's watching me or listening to me could say, "Oh, she sounds like so-and-so there." I'm sure that happens. When I first got to Berkeley, everybody said to me, "Oh, you sound just like Billie Holiday." And I always thought it was so funny because I never listened to Billie Holiday, but I realized that I listened to, as a kid, a lot of Mildred Bailey, who was one of Billie's big influences. And I also listened to a lot of my dad. And my dad was a huge Billie Holiday fan. So then after people kept telling me that, I went, oh, I better listen more to her. So I went back, I started listening. And then I said, oh, okay, I can see it. Now I don't get that as much, but I did get that a lot in the very beginning.
Well, this has been a really rich and fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the new album, and have a wonderful performance this Father's Day.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Antonia Bennett's latest album is titled Expressions. Her Father's Day concert is this coming Sunday at Regatta Bar in Cambridge. To learn more, go to their website for ticket information. Coming up, as America looks forward to its 250th birthday, Eddie Escalade Jr. is asking what kind of country we're really celebrating. His new book examines the diluted discussions the U.S. has continued to have in its milestone moments, that is. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Learn something new.
I want to start with how crowds of people can act like fluids.
Yes.
What?
I mean, this is physics, so I love it.
Make a connection.
I have no idea who they voted for. I don't care. This tailgate in particular, everybody's welcome.
Dig a bit deeper.
We're often looking for a small secular liturgy for our lives, and poetry can provide that sometimes.
Stay curious with All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, a global community of leaders seeking fresh insights on strategy, innovation, and AI. More than 90 programs offered year-round. More at executive.mit.edu. And Harvard Museums of Science and Culture, 4 museums a short walk from Harvard Square, with exhibits ranging from stunning glass flowers to ancient Egyptian mummy cases. Learn more at hmsc.harvard.edu. And Hunter Higgs LLC, presenting Black Cat, a new play by Dan Hunter, a drama exploring science, Parkinson's disease, memory, and discoveries of the soul. June 18th through June 28th. Ticket information at bostonplaywrights.org.
Breaking local news and breaking it down to how it affects you. GBH News 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app. Trusted local news.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. As America approaches its 250th birthday, the country has been looking back on its founding and deciding once again what story it wants to tell about itself. Anniversaries are never only about the past. They reveal what a nation chooses to remember, what it elects to forget, and what it's willing to confront in the present. In his new book, America, USA, How Race Shadows the Nation's Anniversaries, Eddie Escalade Jr. looks at the way America has marked its milestone moments, like its centennial, bicentennial, and the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. America, he illustrates, is constantly living in response to its own whiteness, writing, I do not love America and never have, especially now. He also writes, I love deeply those who have borne and must bear the brunt of the country's madness. Glad is one of the country's leading public intellectuals, a Princeton professor, political commentator, and New York Times bestselling author, whose previous books include Begin Again, James Baldwin's America, and its urgent lessons for our own. He'll appear at a Brookline Booksmith event tonight at 6:30 at WBUR's City Space. Eddie Glad, welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor to be in conversation with you.
Well, it was such a privilege to read your book, and in this moment where we're trying to make sense of this country, where we maybe have wondered, I know I certainly have, how other generations have looked at the country in milestones. You take us there. What set you on this path to investigate and report on where our country has been at these particular times?
I think at the heart of it was this attempt to understand our current moment. Here we are in the 250th year of the nation, and we're grappling with what I take to be one of the central contradictions of the American project. And I wanted to understand it. I know that history haunts, but sometimes we have to haunt history. We have to scour the past in order to find resources, to respond to our own moment. And so I was trying to account for this 250th. I was trying to find resources to manage my own rage and anger. And so I decided I couldn't write a 250-year history of the country, so I thought, where are these moments where we have to tell ourselves a story about who we are and what's happening? And lo and behold, the heart of the country came into view.
Well, we know that right now there are very fraught conversations being had. There are very raw conversations being had. And it turns out there's always been, certainly the conversations have never been to the extent they are now at the 100th, the bicentennial. But this country's been at pains to not have those conversations.
Oh, absolutely. If you look back at 1876, our centennial, in the aftermath of the carnage of the Civil War, with 600,000 people dead on land and sea, here we are on the cusp of the Gilded Age. Reconstruction is collapsing right in front of us. You're having political coups all across the South, even though parts of the South are still under occupation by northern armies. The country tells itself a story about its founding that really banishes from view the reasons for the war. Frederick Douglass is just sitting on stage silent. He's not allowed to speak. President Grant talks about our technological innovation, our power, the robust imagination of the United States. In so many ways, we stepped into a fantasy. It was this massive act of disremembering, to use Toni Morrison's language. In 1926, in our sesquicentennial, the 150th, Jerry, we're in the throes of this vicious anti-immigration, you might call it virus. The Klan was reborn, of course, in the early 19-teens, 1915. And here, Italian Americans, Irish Americans, Jewish, those folks the Irish, Jewish, Italian, those folks who are coming from those dark countries in Europe are really bearing the brunt of America's hatred and nativism. And of course, this is also a time of extreme racial violence as Jim Crow is taking place. The country tells itself a story where none of this stuff is in view. So what we see over and over again is America retreating into its myths in order to avoid confronting who and what it is.
But at the same time, you do have figures like Frederick Douglass who are trying to acquaint people with the real history. But as you point out, it's deliberately told this way. People aren't given the platform. People aren't given the voice. They're very much excluded unless you're a Frederick Douglass who is just barreling forth.
Yeah, so there's always these counter voices. That first sentence you read from the book, I do not love America, never have, and especially now. It's really a sentence rooted in my own experiences as a person from Mississippi, but it's also driven by this urge to refuse the allure, the temptation of idolatry. What does it mean to idolize a state, something so abstract that could actually corrode your moral sense? I'm more interested in folk closer to the ground. If I'm going to speak of love, it's going to be close to the ground, to the communities and people to whom I'm indebted and for whom I care. And so I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the country has told itself a story, but people are living their lives and they're telling counter stories, particularly Black people, who are bearing the brunt of the country's doubleness, the country's divided soul. We're speaking back in every moment in which the country tries to tell itself a particular comforting narrative.
Well, I'll leap forward a little bit, and there's a focus on Boston toward the end of the book in the 1970s, which we're reminded, we know that well here, but you remind us as well that in 1976, this is when the city was, at that time in the mid-70s, the city was roiling in the busing crisis. You mentioned Byron Rushing, well-beloved state senator here, what he had to say about the documents failing, the material documents failing that this country is grounded on. You feature the Stanley Foreman photo of Ted Landsmark and what happened to him. So in that moment, you see people coming forward at a time when so much of the country was just about bunting and parades and President Ford coming to Concord here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, 76 is so interesting. Maybe it's because I was 7 or 8, I have a photo of me in my red and white blue pants. It was so kitschy. But, there's the bicentennial carried the burden of having to respond to the fractures, the skepticism around the American project. I mean, we're coming out of Watergate. Saigon has fallen, Black Power, Black Women's Movement, SDS. There's this sense in which the country was coming apart at the seams. And so the bicentennial was the first celebration with television. Because 1926, you didn't have it.
Right.
1876, you damn sure didn't have it, right? So you have this moment where you didn't have to have everyone gather in Philadelphia. Everyone could watch, Bob Hope or, listen to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I didn't quite get that. But, you had all of this stuff on television. So they were trying to really speak to it. But then there was still this roiling chaos underneath the desire for consensus. And the anti-busing movement in Boston was so intense. And so when I came across that that classic Stanley Forman photograph, I thought, this is representative. Right? But this is also a moment, Jared, when for the first time, those people who in 1926, coming from Ireland and Italy, who were subject to such barbarous treatment, cruel treatment, their children were now claiming the revolution as their own. 1976, according to Lonnie Bunch, was really a celebration of white ethnic America. But at the same time that was happening, of course, we were still grappling with the central contradiction at the heart of the country, which I argue in the book is this divided soul. America imagines itself as a beacon of freedom and as a white republic.
I want to go back to that in just a moment, but remind people who are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Eddie Escalade Jr. about his book, America, USA, How Race Shadows the Nation's Anniversaries. Well, to go back to that point, you talk about the doubleness, the two-ness of white and everything else in this country, as we've seen repeatedly.
Yeah, you can't hold those two commitments together without contradiction. America's a beacon of freedom, but we're a white republic. And by trying to hold it without, you deposit a kind of madness at the heart of the country. And the way in which the country has finessed it is that certain people believe that they own freedom, that they possess it to give and to take away. And so you get these cycles of sentimentality and rage. Oh, we cry our wet eyes, we cry our crocodile tears. So just think about it. Just 6 years ago, we were in the midst of a racial reckoning because we all witnessed the murder of George Floyd. And we saw all of this outpouring. People risked their lives protesting while COVID was rampaging. And in the blink of an eye, we're here. Voting Rights Act, gutted. Southern states, not just simply southern states, but they're redrawing districts and the like. And you got to ask yourself, were people lying? What was going on? And what happens is that when sentimentality fails, when sentimentality doesn't result in absolution, I've admitted my sins, you should forgive me, and instead more demands come, then you get the cry, what else do you want? Overreach, overreach. And then we double down on the status quo and we find ourselves right here. 1970, Ralph Ellison, the novelist of Invisible Man, wrote this wonderful piece in Time magazine entitled, What Would America Be Like Without Blacks? And he said, whenever the country tires of the question of racial justice, it reaches for the fantasy of a lily-white America, the fantasy of secession. And we happen to be in one moment such as that now.
If you read the book, as I did, you will get a sense of your optimism. People love to ask historians, observers right now about their optimism in this moment. It doesn't sound like you have much at all.
Yeah, I don't know who we're going to be on the other side of this. The story we tell ourselves is that the American promise is guaranteed. We're always already on the road to a more perfect union. It works like a kind of moral holiday. Yes, we sin, but we're okay. Just say a couple of Our Fathers and Hail Marys, you'll be all right. Right. But I don't know who we're going to be on the other side of this. But one of my students in my Baldwin seminar wrote this sentence in her final paper. She says, maybe it's not hope we need to talk about today. Maybe we need to tell the truth, carried with love and lit by rage. Because at the end of the day, Jared, we have to grow up as a nation, and that requires telling the truth about how we got to this moment.
One of the passages that just stopped me as I was reading was about the commemoration of the Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, if ever there was a celebration, a milestone that would force a reckoning, it would be that. But that didn't happen then either.
Because we were still in the midst of the Civil War in some ways. So the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation takes place at the height of the Civil Rights Movement of the mid-20th century. Southern states didn't, what are we talking about? Northern states, Robert Penn Warren writes about this, right? The South understands itself as as a victim, and the North understanding itself as a treasury of virtue. What does it mean to commemorate the Emancipation Proclamation or the Civil War battles in this moment? And so you have this attempt to kind of whitewash it. There's this demand. In fact, Dr. King asked President Kennedy to issue a second Emancipation Proclamation. And Kennedy, for fear of losing the South, refused and instead just simply invited black leaders to dinner at the White House.
Yeah, because he did not show up for this celebration.
Sent a recording instead. And, if we're honest, what else could have happened? Because we were still in the midst of it. The mid-20th century historians describe it as the Second Reconstruction. So we're still battling the ghosts of the Civil War. And in some ways, those ghosts still have us by the neck.
The place of religion in all of this was President Coolidge and the Centennial who goes to religion.
Just thank you for reading the book so closely.
Oh my goodness, it's history that we need to understand and know.
Yeah, Calvin Coolidge is so important to the story. Because what he does in 1926 at the exposition in Philadelphia, which was mired in corruption and was a failure by any measure. But he delivers this speech, and he renders the American Revolution in conservative terms. We only need one, he said, because the Revolution gave voice to enduring metaphysical principles that weren't reducible to that moment. And what he's saying to Americans, don't look to Russia. Don't look to what's happening over there. Don't look to all of this. America's salvation was present in its founding. And that's all we need to do is to remember and restore. And at that moment in which he's invoking that particular reading of the founding, he says, we have lived up to it. And you can say, well, I can imagine all the black soldiers who were ignored, who fought in World War I, saying, really? Right? All the folk who were bearing the brunt of the violence of the KKK going, we've lived up to it? So it's this massive act of disremembering. Now, what's important about Calvin Coolidge's speech in 1926 is that it sets the stage for a MAGA evangelical twist. Trump and J.D. Vance and that ilk actually hold the same view. They reject more perfect union talk. To talk about we're always already on the road to a more perfect union is scandalous. No, in our founding was perfection, salvation. All we need to do is to remember and restore. And then J.D. Vance will add, and remember, it's not just creed, it's also blood and soil.
Well, how do you distill all of this now in, I shot my last question by asking you already about optimism, but as you've become reacquainted with this history and you're sharing this and you understand that there are some advances, there were people I didn't realize at the Old North Church and the bicentennial celebrations who were drawing attention to the real America. Mm-hmm. You have great praise for President Biden in what he did in not sweeping history under the rug. So if you see things move forward, we see it move back, what do you begin to portend about the future?
My only hope is that we grow up as a nation. As long as we're adolescent, you can just bomb around and have the Strait of Hormuz closed and then say somebody else come fix it. All right. We'll elect people who move as if they're children who in Never Never Land, who don't want to be held to account or held responsible for anything. By retreating into the kind of fantasy of innocence, we set the stage for us to be monstrous. And so part of what I'm trying to do with this book is to tell a story, to offer resources for us to imagine ourselves differently as we get to the other side of this madness. But there's no guarantee. But, and in some ways, I guess, even though I began with I do not love America, my student is telling me, and my tradition is telling me, that our task is to love each other close to the ground in the midst of this. And the only way that can happen is for you to see me and me to see you, and for us to see the human beings right in front of us. But that's hard to do when these categories are doing so much work for us.
I know your book has been out for a little bit. What has been the response? Because you're forward, as we've talked about.
Yeah, it's been amazing, to be honest with you. I might be in a bubble, but the response, if you look at the New York Times bestseller list right now, and we were blessed to be on it for a week, but every book, most of the books about the country are the storybook versions. Revolution, the history of the greatest country in the history of the world, and all of just this. Look at the UFC fight, and so there's this response that has been kind of a longing for a pathway to imagine ourselves differently. And I suppose at the end of the day, my faith is in us. I have to have faith in human beings to be otherwise. We are at once, we can be monstrous, but we can also be miracles. And I'm going to double down on the fact that we can be miraculous.
So happy to hear that. That's a relief. But this is imperative reading for our entire country. Eddie Escalade Jr., thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for being such a great reader and a conversation partner.
Well, great to be with you. Eddie Escalade Jr.'s latest book is America, USA, How Race Shadows the Nation's Anniversaries. He'll appear at Brookline Booksmith at an event tonight at 6:30 at WBUR City Space. Tickets are available through their website. Again, thank you so much. Coming up, Igor Goliak takes us on UNESCO's absurdist comedy, where private conflict meets public chaos. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Trade.
Huge responses from across Europe, from the Danish Prime Minister.
Climate.
Picture this all filled with ice.
Security.
Not only do we need to end the war, we also need to prevent the next war.
These are global issues, and to understand them, you need a global perspective. I'm Carolyn Beeler.
And I'm Marco Werman. Join us for The World each and every weekday.
This afternoon at 3 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Museum of Fine Arts, presenting Framing Nature, Gardens, and Imagination. This new exhibition of beloved and never-before-seen treasures centers gardens across time, place, and cultures. More at mfa.org. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, proud to support the Boston Business Journal Minute, Friday mornings at 6:45 and 8:45 on GBH's Morning Edition. More at cambridgetrust.com. And the Boston Symphony Orchestra, presenting classical soloists, popular artists, and a week of programs curated by Yo-Yo Ma amid the Berkshire Hills at Tanglewood. More at tanglewood.org.
The GBH News app is your home for trusted local news, so you can get the news you need and get on with the rest of the day. Download the GBH News app today on the App Store or Google Play.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Igor Goliak has made a career of taking theater apart and putting it back together in startling and revealing new forms. As the founder and artistic director of Arlequin Players Theater, he has brought us work that is daring, politically charged, and emotionally immediate, including his award-winning production of Our Class. Now he turns to Eugen Ionesco, one of the great architects of the theater of the absurd, with Delirium, a new adaptation of UNESCO's Frenzy for Two or More. It begins with a couple trapped in an endless, seemingly trivial argument while the world outside appears to be destroying itself. In other words, domestic comedy, existential crisis, and apocalypse all sharing the stage. Delirium runs this Thursday through July 2nd at the Calderwood Pavilion at the BCA. Igor Goliak, welcome back to the Culture Show. This should be a fun one to talk about.
Yes, thank you for having me. So glad to be back.
Well, it's great to talk to you always about your creative process, but especially with this one. For people who don't know, how would you describe, in fact, I'm not sure I've ever seen a UNESCO piece staged. Who is he in the theater canon?
So he's definitely one of the great fathers of the theater of the absurd. His family immigrated from Romania to France, and he grew up in France. And he kind of got his... he grew up during the Second World War. So he's definitely a writer writing in... after the Second World War, as the world is changing, as people are trying to realize what happened during World War II, and how do we live with ourselves, with what we have done to each other in World War II. So the world for him, and for many other people, became absurd, where things, the right and wrong got reversed, where nothing is called what it actually is, when the world, this is a quote from the play, the world is upside down. But he does it in such a comical and it's absurd, but it's very understandable, especially in our time.
That's very interesting. So maybe 10 years ago you couldn't have done this as effectively?
Yeah, well, it talks about war, and one of the phrases of a character, when there's no war, there's still war, and if it's not the war, it's the pandemic. And these are, this is language that he used in the end of, 1950s. And when we read it out loud with the actors, the phrases themselves on the page don't make sense. But when you say them out loud in the context of our world today, they suddenly become, oh my God, we know what they're talking about. If you read it on a page, it doesn't make sense. But when you say it out loud in today's perception of the world, of how people, what we live with on day-to-day basis, we know exactly what they're talking about, which is so interesting, and it's the right time to stage UNESCO, I think.
Well, you're not calling it Frenzy for Two. This is Delirium. So how, with the title change, maybe suggesting something, how would you describe this as an adaptation?
Yeah, UNESCO is usually quite difficult to stage because, again, there's almost no story, and it's absurd, and it's difficult for people to follow. And the way that
that means a lot that you're saying that, I have to point out.
Yeah. And so we had to kind of dissect it and figure out the humanity underneath the words, and figure out the day-to-day dynamics of a family, of a couple that is in love, that is trying to survive in this world that is collapsing. And they do it in a very naive and at the same time funny, almost Charlie Chaplin, not Charlie Chaplin, maybe Thierry kind of way, almost clownish, but it's real. It's clownish, but it's extremely real, and they believe in what they're doing, and they believe in how they're overcoming the horrors of this world in such a naive and funny way, and they're, as you said, they're arguing about whether a snail is the same thing as a turtle, while the world is collapsing, and this argument becomes something that saves them in this kind of naive argument. Of course, it's a microcosm for bigger arguments, but there's so much love in it. It's almost like it's a romantic play that is extremely funny, but also there's tragedy that's kind of that's lurking in the background.
Well, before I ask about the all-star cast you have, especially as this couple, because this piece isn't performed very much, if at all, were you aware of it, or did you seek it out?
So I actually read it when I was in school, and it stuck out to me. And then I was looking for something to do with these two specific actors, and I remember this piece. I reread it, and I decided that I want to adapt it. I want to change it a little bit. The original title in French, as it was written in French, Délire à deux, so delirium for two. I don't think frenzy is actually a right way to describe it. It's really the world is delirious. It's not just them that is delirious. It's the world that is upside down. And I've added things from Ionesco's journals. He wrote 7 short stories for his daughter. And they're extremely funny, and they're very, very naive, but also in an Ionesco way, where a character asks, "Are you talking on a telephone?" And this is a story that I inserted into the play from Ionesco's story that he wrote for his daughter. "Are you talking on a telephone?" "No, it's not a telephone. It's a cheese." "What's a cheese?" "A cheese is a cheese." "No, a cheese is not a cheese. A cheese is a door." And then they put together sentences, and you understand that they're playful and they're it's a way of survival, but at the same time they don't know how to deal that's not a telephone anymore, that's a cheese, and just the world is collapsing in their minds, but the way that they're perceiving it is you empathize with them.
How much first of all, if people are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Igor Goliak, founder and artistic director of Arlequin Players Theater. We're talking about Delirium, the UNESCO play, which runs through an adaptation of the play that runs through this Thursday through July 2nd at the Calderwood Pavilion at the Boston Center for the Arts. As you're describing this, I'm thinking, and I will be there for your opening night, I'm thinking about what it'll be like to sit in the audience hearing this. It's almost immersive theater in a way, because this couple is trying to make sense of the world through things that don't make sense, but we as the audience members are also going to be digesting things that may not make sense, or trying to make sense of them. How much of this is putting weight on the audience, or was he putting weight on the audience?
I'm not sure how much weight he was putting on the audience. The way that I love creating theater is ultimately for the effect of how people carry what they saw after the play ends, and how do we think about the world? Where should we stop and realize, like, how has our world been upside down, and where have our perceptions switched from one to the other without even us knowing? And that's the horrors of World War II, where perceptions of people, who is evil, what is evil, has completely switched. Like the world is upside down. And how is that the case in today's world? So I'm more interested in what really happens with people on the way home, than impressing them at the theater. But it's something that definitely will stick with people, that they will want to ponder.
So how are you staging this? What can you tell us? You have to leave some surprises for the day, but as we've talked through the years, you are so inventive in your staging and the worlds you create.
Yeah. First of all, it's going to be stunningly beautiful. And the way that how am I staging? It's really a mix of genres, with physical comedy, with verbal comedy, with drama, love, and tragedy, all mixed into one thing. There was an incredible invention of our set designer that he all of a sudden thought there should be a live fish. And there is a beautiful live fish and the idea behind that for me is that, no matter what happens in our world, no matter what happens, the fish just lives in its own aquarium.
I think about this all the time. I really do. I think about the fish. I think about the trees.
The trees.
The trees are just growing. They're here. And I think it was reinforced over the weekend hearing that news about the quote-unquote witness tree outside Abraham Lincoln's home.
That's right.
The part of it
They're
came
witnesses.
down. Right. They've seen it all.
They've seen it all.
And they're still here.
That's exactly the kind of the idea that we're going with. And this fish is unbelievable. It's like interacting with actors. It's insane. I don't know. This is a special fish. We named her. She's on an equity contract.
Yeah.
She has her equity caught in the aquarium. When I was in Jedwabne, when we were doing our class, there were horrific things happened during World War II. What struck me was this incredible landscape, this incredible vista where these horrific events happened, where people burned other people. And it's just the coexistence of two. The coexistence of this incredible beauty, of this incredibly beautiful fish during a war. And, at some point, the fish is actually helping them make a decision. And depending on where the fish swims, that tells us who wins the argument. And, it's a way of... during the pandemic, for example, we were like this fish. We are thinking that we're making choices, but in the fish doesn't know the choices that it's making, because it doesn't know that it affects where she swims. That's that's who wins the argument. And it's just like us. We're making these decisions, and sometimes we're like the fish. We don't see past the aquarium.
No. Oh, I love this already. I haven't asked about the casting yet. Who have you brought to the fore to play this couple?
So, because this is, the main argument of the show, or how it starts anyway, is whether a turtle and a snail are the same thing or not, and because both carry a shell on their backs, carry their home on their backs, and I thought, what would be who would best express this idea? What kind of actors? And for me, they're refugee actors that carry their homes on their backs. And it happens to be that the two actors that I'm working with, Chulpan Khamatova and Andrei Burkovsky. Chulpan was in our class, and Andrei was in Dibuk. Did you get to see the Dibuk?
I did see it.
Yeah. He was the lead there. So those two, they were incredibly famous actors in Russia. They still are, and they left at the start of the war. And they have been kind of traveling, especially Chulpan, ever since, carrying her house on their backs. So it's something that they could really relate to. And they tell it in such a interesting and physical and touching way that it's because they know what they're talking about. They know what it's like.
They have not been able to go back to Russia.
No. Of course,
and probably won't.
No, yeah.
Do you have a name for the fish? I didn't ask that follow-up
yes,
either.
It's Jeanette.
Jeanette, really?
Yes.
So as this is in the rehearsal process, how much of it has been...
Because you were asking about the whole casting, and I forgot to mention the fish.
Well, apparently, your estimation is getting now top billing, starring Jeanette the fish.
The funny thing is that, don't tell anyone, the funny thing is that the actors are like jealous of the fish now that the fish is stealing the attention,
We did spend more time talking about Jeanette than we did the two actors, I will point out.
Yes.
I was just going to say, in this rehearsal process, which I think always must be one of the most exciting parts of the show, for the on-the-ground discovery, what's been most revelatory to you?
I think the most revelatory has been discovering the type of theater that this play needs, because it's not your regular two people sitting and talking. They're constantly, as immigrants, as people that are trying to survive this world, they're constantly inventing things. So a leash becomes something that you turn on the generator with, to give power, a dog leash. Becomes, you pull on it and becomes a generator. And generators, in Ukraine, they're extremely, I'm from Ukraine originally, and they're extremely important. And things like that they come up with, that a door becomes a table and then becomes wings and then becomes, where we create, we and they create something out of nothing. And it's a constant kind of improvisation of imagination with the audience. The audience follows this, and the actors are inventing it as we go. And this was the most interesting kind of discovery about this rehearsal process.
Well, I cannot wait to see this. I think it's also interesting. I should point out the ART is doing UNESCO later this summer, too. So this is a moment where, we need to reconcile what we're seeing and what's unfolding. And I can't wait to meet Jeanette next week when I see the show.
I will introduce you.
Thank you. I look forward to that. Igor Goliak, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Igor Goliak is the founder and artistic director of Arlequin Players Theater. Their production of Delirium runs this Thursday through July 2nd at the Calderwood Pavilion at the Boston Center for the Arts. To learn more about tickets and showtimes, go to the Arlequin Players website. Well, thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. You can tune in tomorrow for Reggie Gibson, the inaugural Poet Laureate of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, plus Joseph Palermo on what it was like to work at the Kennedy Center during its most tumultuous time. He has his perspective by being on the inside. The Culture Show crew is Max Chow-Gillette, Kate Dellis, and Chelsea Murs. Today's engineer is Dave Goodman. Our interns are Katie McCabe and Adina Velasquez. Bill Francis produced today's YouTube live stream. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All Things Considered at 4 and Marketplace at 6:30. But first, the world. A global view of today's headlines from the World Newsroom. Right here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865. Roadshow heads to the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art to see if they can find any ethereal treasures in the natural state. Guess the top find on Antiques Roadshow, tonight at 8 on GBH2.
GBH brings you the in-depth, quality reporting you depend on each day. When you make an ongoing gift of support to GBH, you're strengthening this station's commitment to bringing you the local news and stories you need to stay in the know, now and in the months to come. GBH is your trusted news source for Greater Boston. So make an ongoing monthly contribution now to support it. Online at gbhnews.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?